everybody to the first meeting of the Works and Infrastructure Committee for this next term. We did have an apology from Councillor Laurie, but he's turned up, which is nice to see. Mr. Councillor Delbig's name was left off the list. Apologies for that. And today we have three folks speaking to us in the public forum, and we'll get to that very shortly. Welcome, Your Worship. Paul, do you want to just inform everybody about your fundraiser for Kaikoura? Yep.
Thank you, through the Chair. Just very quickly, with discussions with our Chief Executive, we've been passed on a message from Palmerston North City Council, who issued a challenge to all councils throughout New Zealand to help raise funds for our friends less fortunate over the hill. So what council staff will be doing tomorrow, we'll be having a mufti day to help, just something small to help us help raise some funds for Kaikoura. So just something small that we'll be planning to do, but thought it would be worth mentioning to let all councillors know.
So you'd like us to dig deep, would you?
But of course, yes.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, let's have our public forum, and can I invite Jill to come and join us? And you've got a PowerPoint presentation, right? Good.
Okay, so good morning, Mayor Rees and all councillors, whether they be new or old. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jill and the owner of the fish stop, which I might add, but presently boasts the best fish and chips in Nelson. We have an awesome outside dining area that is utilised on a day-to-day basis. This is the seagulls bombarding people. This is 12:24 lunchtime, like people utilising it all the time. And this is at 10 o'clock in the morning. Table and chairs aren't out, but still being utilised. We have been in the Lonely Planet for 3 years now, so we have a large number of tourists who are coming through and love dining outside along with our daily clientele. The colour of the area is not what I envisioned. However, I've been asked not to do anything else to the area until after this forum. So the outside of the area is a very brown looking area and doesn't look nice, I admit. So this is a picture of our logo, and I envisioned the green around the mouth is actually a lot brighter, and so our shop is that colour, and what I envision is to have that painted, the outside painted the same colour. That way it will go in line with the colour of the shop, you know. And then the council, after speaking with Jules Reid, proposed that we paint it black. I've spoken to a lot of people, a lot of locals. They're certainly against it. Few reasons. I've also spoken to a painter. He's had a look at it, and he said, one, the paint, like the woodwork would warp with the heat. You'd have the seagulls, the droppings of the seagulls making a mess all over it. It would become more dangerous at night time. We're not in the central business district, and we like to think that we're a little bit more unique, you know, being on the outskirts of town. So people, I've canvassed people, members of the public, they don't want it painted black, and I personally think that it would look way better with the green going around it. So here we go. This one here, we have a major problem with the seagulls at the moment, You can see the 2 rubbish bins there. Every day, not only myself or my staff, but other members of the shops have to clean up the rubbish from the receptacles. These seagulls here are actually dive bombing these people on the side there for their food. Now when we have children sitting in there, they're also getting dive bombed, you know, and it's not a pretty look. Now we also have people, general public, who come along and forage in the bins, and one of them who doesn't take kindly to being told not to do it, you know, she becomes quite abusive. Anyway, yeah, so having a bin with a lid on it would alleviate this problem. It would stop the seagulls, it would stop people from going into the bin trying to get food out, you know, leftover food. Yeah, so that's that. I noticed that we're going to be offered a renewal for 5 years. I would like it to have a right of renewal, and with the possibility of going into it 2 years prior to the due date, so that it can be finalised quicker. Other than that, that's our shop.
Thanks very much, Jill. Any questions? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a bunch, if that's okay.
How long's the bunch?
Oh, about four.
Fine.
They're all good questions, though. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jill, for the presentation and the slides. First of all, looking at the report, there's an image of what originally was planned for the area.
Exactly.
And you're familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously. So when I saw that, I went, oh wow, that looks really nice.
So did I.
I thought it was really, really nice, and I'm glad that you've said that, you know, the appearance of what we've got maybe, you know, could be better. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to me why we don't have this?
Why we don't? I went through to council, and they said that they wouldn't allow the pagoda style, the roof,
right.
Like, because we envisioned it as being eventually a cover, as shade cloth, that sort of thing, for people who are dining underneath. They said that it would look too permanent, and we wouldn't be able to have it.
Right.
And then, so we took that away, and they said you can only have them so high, so that's the height that we were allowed going around.
Yep.
And I also said to them that because Elton Street has a wind funnel going up it in the afternoons, it's horrendous. We used to have 2 great big umbrellas, but they just got knocked about. And I said if we weren't allowed to have shrubbery going around the edge because it would become a visual thing, which was fair enough. So I said, well, we need protection from the wind, okay, for all the customers and stuff like that. So I said I'll put reinforced glass around, and that would become, you know, it doesn't stop any visual problems at all, and that's what we've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I hear what you're saying about the colours, but one of the keys to this idea of having these spaces, originally when this committee decided to go with it, was to create areas that everyone could use. And it occurs to me, if you paint that area the same colour as your shop, it will sort of signal that it is more an area for the exclusive use of your customers.
I don't think so, because every day we have people, it doesn't matter what colour it is on the outside,
okay.
You know, it's assisting people with knowing that it's there, you know, yeah, I mean, we have people who just come with like Thai food, corner shop food, that sort of thing, even packed lunches, and they just sit there,
Sure.
You know, so it's not designated. I mean, I pay for it,
Yeah.
you know, so therefore I should be able to have some sense of belonging, you know,
Sure.
but it's just geared up for everybody.
Okay, do you, through the chair, have you considered, and I mentioned this to you last time you spoke to the committee, have you considered some signage that explains to people how it works? Because the people, I guess, who are having their lunch there already, that they're already familiar with the area, they know that it's a place they can go to. But perhaps for people who are new to the area, it will look like it's exclusively for the use of your customers.
I don't think we need to have signage at all. Where would we put the signage?
Next to that pot plant on the right, perhaps, and on the other side, where people can see them.
Yeah, I don't think we need to have it, you know. We have like tourists coming through every day, you know,
Okay.
and they just automatically go out there. you
Okay.
know.
And my final question through the chair, thank you for your tolerance. The issue of the bins, you could put a lid on it and it would stop the birds from getting in there, but it's not going to stop people from getting in there.
It would stop people from going right to the bottom of the bin,
Ah,
and you'd be surprised. And I'm sorry I can't give you a picture of the lady, one of the ladies who was doing it, because of the earthquake, and it knocked my cameras out, you know, so I couldn't get a picture of it. But she
Right.
was there, and she does it quite frequently, and she's rummaging around. And there's also another Asian lady that goes through the bins as well.
two ladies,
Two ladies.
regulars
Not regulars to the shop, but regulars to the
to the
bin.
bin. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Jill.
Hi.
My question's relating to the glass, and it's always worried me. But I see from the report that it's Perspex glass.
It's reinforced glass. It is actually windscreen glass, so that if it's hit, it just cracks. It doesn't shatter at all.
And one more follow-up question: have you had any cracking or breakage of that glass since it's been in?
No.
And how long's it been there?
Since we built it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No more? Okay. Oh, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jill, I just want to be clear, what exactly are you asking the committee to do today? What would you like them to do? You hear about colour and you hear about
Yeah,
the
I'm
bins?
here about the colour.
Right.
I don't like the general public, and the feeling is that they don't want it painted black. You know,
Okay.
it's okay to have black in the CBD. That's all in tune. You know, but like we are uniquely Nelson, so it's nice to have something different. You know, and I have an artist who's happy to do a painting around there, you know, an abstract painting. I have another artist who can do googly fish, you know, stuff like that, you know, just to make it that little bit more different.
All right, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. And in relation to the bins, are these council bins? I take it they are?
They are,
They
yeah.
are. Do you want them moved?
I don't think we need to have them moved, but just something generally that looks a little bit nicer.
Are they helpful to your shop? Does the newsprint from the fish and chips or what have you end up in these bins, or does it go back in the shop?
It ends up sometimes in our shop, depends on where the people are. People will bring it in if they can't see
Okay.
the bins, you know. But otherwise it goes in the bins, and then the seagulls, the little ones, we've also got the great big ones that go in there, and they just pull everything out. So you
Right.
could go down there on a Saturday morning and there'd be stuff strewn around the road.
Okay.
You know, so I have to go and pick it up.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Just one final question, Mr. Chair. How long's the lease for, or licence, whichever one it is? What's proposed?
The licence was for 1 year.
Right.
And the agreement was that if it worked, if it was deemed to be working, then it would stay. You know, if they had a large amount of complaints, then it would have to be removed. And as far as I can see, it's working. It works on a daily basis. It takes everybody off the footpath, you know, so people are able to move through. It's the blind people, anybody, you know, general public, pushchairs.
Excuse me, Chair. Jill, I understand that there was a 1 year trial, I understood that, but moving forward, so I take it the committee has previously indicated a willingness to extend this from a trial to something more permanent.
Permanent, 5 years.
5 years, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jill. You don't have a seagull problem to yourself.
No, I
The other places in town seem to make good use of large water pistols.
Yeah, I do have a gun that fires salt and pepper, you know, but doesn't look like it was quite humorous at the time, but yeah, but you can't be out there all the time.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Skinner.
Sorry, thank you. I'll try and be quick. Just following on the 1 year trial, are you saying you were given the indication that it would be more than a trial at some stage?
Yes. Yeah, initially.
And may I ask, when and how wasn't it at a committee meeting?
No,
here?
I've never been to, like, I've only been to one previous committee meeting, but like when we put this through, the plans were submitted, it went through council, and then it was agreed that it would be for 1 year.
Correct.
And then as I said, if they had complaints, it would have to be removed.
Correct.
If it was deemed to be working, then it would be able to stay, you know, or be renewed, you know. But then halfway through the year, I receive a letter, or in fact, I had a person from the council come up saying, my boss doesn't like this, we'll get Downers to come and remove it. And I just said, no, over my dead body. Hey, you know, and this is a member of the council coming to me, and he said, well, you could take that away, and because at that stage we had a gazebo up for shade, and he said, you can have the gazebo in the car parks, but you can take everything
So I'm
else
sorry,
away."
just sorry, where it was confirmed that it was not going to be a trial, it was going to be a right of renewal, what was the answer to that?
The right of renewal.
Or it was more than just a trial, it changed from being a trial where it finishes a year, but
Yeah, that's sort of like, I mean, that was the information that we were given at the time, you know. There was nothing written in concrete, but that's...
an assumption
It was-
that a trial wasn't a trial.
Yeah, it was always a trial, you know.
Okay, so I'll move on to another couple of questions, but the food foraging, for me it's more concern of the poor person who's after some food. Is it someone's just got a habitual, or a
Yes.
need? Was there a need
I think it's a habitual habit.
more than a
Yeah,
a need?
Yeah, yeah. The lady has been into the shop and actually purchased food, but she's sort of goes off on a tangent, you know.
And sorry, one quick question. The rubbish bins, is that rubbish from commercial rubbish, as in customer wrappings?
Yes,
And those-
not only from our shop, but from all the other shops as well. People
Okay.
go past, they'll throw cans in, containers, that sort of thing. I have seen people who have taken rubbish bags out of their car, they've obviously cleaned the rubbish in their car and put it in the bin, but
And it's sufficient for the commercial rubbish, the bins,
for commercial rubbish,
as in size?
the size, yeah,
Okay. Thanks very much, Jill.
thank you.
And as you know, we'll be considering your application and recommendation later in the meeting. Thank you. John, do you want to come and join us? I gather you don't like microphones, is that right? Not a problem, but when we live stream, and this, we are live streaming, your conversation won't be recorded. No, I'm just letting you know that's what happens.
So is that me on?
Yep, you're on.
Awesome. Your Worship, Mr. Chair and councillors, good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak here at this morning's public forum. My name is John Gordy, and along with my brother we own and operate the Challenge branded service station at 33 Waimea Road, Nelson. Councillors will be aware of the significant infrastructure works that are taking place on Waimea Road, the cost and length of time of this job. I have, as an affected businessman, been concerned about this for some time, and I have forwarded several pieces of correspondence to your Council GM Infrastructure Manager, Mr. Levertis, and we have had a reply from Mr. Levertis, which I didn't quite think hit the mark as a business and ratepayer of the Nelson City. I replied, and from there it was getting close to D-Day with council elections. I then had another reply from a Jasmine Brandt that if I was wanting to take it any further, I needed to come and address this group here today. I'm out of my comfort zone. I don't like doing this. I try and fix cars and we try and make an honest dollar. But what's gone on Waimea Road and the significant financial duress that project has put our business under, I need to be here today and see and ask if we can get something across the line with council that when significant works take place and there are affected businesses, that some form of policy or process needs to be on the table. Some form of rate remission that helps support the business that is getting significantly knocked around. I can't believe in this day and age that the City Council does not have a policy to support affected businesses when significant infrastructure works take place. The recent flyer that came out with our rates talks about rates and recycling, and also various types of remission that currently are on the table with council. I don't see one at all there saying, hey, affected businesses, we're here to help. I see one there that's quite intriguing, remission for golf practice greens. Council will provide rating relief on golf practice greens. Remission on Maori freehold land. At present, Council does not have a rates remission for Maori freehold land. Council will develop a policy when an application is received. So if it takes an application received to initiate it, please, this is an application of help and a request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Very concise and to the point, which is good. Any questions? Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, John. And for someone who says he's outside his comfort zone, you've done very well. Well done. My question through the chair, have you, or are you able to put a figure on the cost to your business?
Oh. Have we got any reporters here?
Yes.
Yep.
Will this be reported?
Yep, possibly.
Could I please request that the figures and our...
You're going, excuse me, we're being live streamed.
So I can knock that off and then that'll cut the live streaming?
No. If you don't feel happy answering that question, don't.
Well, I think that the council need to know, and I've put them in front of you.
Has Mr. Levertus got those figures?
He's got part of them.
Right.
But since the correspondence, there's been several more months worth of damage.
Right.
Yeah. So since the project start in April to today, well, to the end of October, 7 months worth, we're down $241,000. Our business bank account at work, I had a $100,000 bank balance at work. That's zero. And I've had to dip into our savings for an extra $35,000 to keep our business afloat and our staff employed. I can't believe your reply to me and the lack of support. My father was a councillor here. He gave 10 years to the city, didn't get one thing for it. Whoa-wee, not good, fellas, ladies, Mayor, not good.
Thanks, John. Councillor Walker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, I really admire you coming here today. As a new councillor, I'm very much aware that my job is to make sure that the city looks after its citizens, its ratepayers and its businesses. And clearly this has not happened here. I would like to ask you, in the prior consultation that must have occurred between you and council staff, was there any discussion made about the possibility of shortening this work duration as much as possible?
We were approached by the council engineer that is handling the task, Daniel Wellwood, and he's a great guy. He approached us well in advance of the job happening and liaised with us extensively prior to the job starting. And I could see that there was a significant length of time that, you know, that Waimea Road was going to be impacted on. I asked him about the business trading hours, so to speak, of the contractors. He advised that with the moteliers down the street, that there were restrictions regarding starting times in the morning and also completion times at the end of the day. And I respected what he said, and take that on board, that obviously with customers coming in, you know, in quiet times. But I've watched the job every day. I'm at work every day. I do feel that the job could have been tightened up in its time frame. We see the contractor finishing on Friday at 4 o'clock, the diggers are getting locked up and they're away. There's sunshine. So I think that, you know, although there was a set time for the contract, I'm sure that things could have been improved. Waimea Road is a main arterial road into the city. It is one of our, probably, and the main road. To have that consistently impacted on for a significant length of time, you guys owe it to yourselves to get those contractors off Waimea Road as soon as you can. Right at the foot of the College Hill at the moment, it's a very busy corner. They've struck a lot of problem there. We've got two wee little side lanes of about 2.5, 3 metres per lane. The contractors lock up on Friday afternoon, and then for the rest of the weekend we have two little 2.5 metre Humpty Lumpty Bumpty lanes as main access into the Nelson City. That's a separate task in itself, but hey, I think that in hindsight, yes, the job could have been shortened up. It could have been run a bit smarter, but certainly take my hat off to council, pushing everything up the road, the stormwater, the sewers, the broadbands and water mains. Great to get it all done at once. Really appreciate that.
Further question, Mr.
A second question, Councillor Walker.
Thank you. John, was any discussion occurred around the possibility of working Saturdays? I mean, we've got a main arterial route here. You know, surely that should have been considered.
I think I asked Daniel the question at the time, and the comment, I think that there was extra costs involved, and that is something that they hadn't allowed or allocated for in the original contract price to council. So, but in hindsight's always a great thing, but I would have thought that that would have been a drive for the document. Hey, this busy road, we've got to keep it open. I went down to Christchurch for a couple of business issues the other week, and I know it's different, but going into around the CBD, they had contractors working all through the night. They had guys grading roads, guys doing drainage work, guys laying asphalt, just happening at a more convenient time, and Lord knows what time those guys worked till, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John. I think you've presented very well, and I think it's very clear what you're looking for. My question is, how much time did you have? When were you first informed that this major work was going to happen?
Well, initially the contract was going to start on the 14th or 18th of March, and we were contacted, you know, in advance of that in a timely fashion. That was great. But the job then actually didn't start till a month later. It was like the 18th of April, so the lead-in time was okay. The killer for us was through July and August, so the sudden cessation of southbound traffic and the diversion of traffic around the back of Rutherford Street and along Van Diemen, that was, you know, that just took a third out of our business straight away for those 2 months. Now that was something that was extra to the initial contract. I don't know why it wasn't identified at an early stage that that sizable chamber that was installed at the base of Waimea Road wasn't identified by council engineers early and brought into the design and allocated in the contract, but that was a killer.
Yes, to follow up.
Thank you.
We're
Just-
running out of time, guys, so
Thank you. I'll be quick. John, I'm just wondering whether you felt that you were fully informed when there were changes to the program.
For sure. Look, the guys on the ground have done a good job, and they've got a good team of people, so the communication with the contractors has been very good. Yep, yep.
thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you. John, I'm wondering if the nature of your business has accentuated the effect upon your business, because there are a number of businesses operating in the area. Is your situation worse than all the others, or are the others feeling the same sort of hurt?
I think that we would be at the top of the list, Ian. We are relying off traffic pulling off Waimea Road unimpeded. As soon as you get large amounts of signs, large amounts of traffic cones, you know, for a lot of customers, that's a turn off, and it's a drive right past, or even taking into consideration what's been happening on Waimea Road, it's a shot round the haven. And I suppose if you guys have had a traffic count done recently, you would probably be able to confirm the level of traffic that's actually, in comparison what used to happen previously, the level of traffic around Haven Road versus Waimea Road these days. But yeah, I would imagine that we would be at the top of the pile, Ian. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Laurie and Councillor Skinner.
Thanks, Chairman. Another question about finances, if it's okay. If you don't, I'm just curious, and if you don't want to tell us, that's fine. But would you mind telling us how much you pay in rates a year?
I don't think that question is relevant at this particular point, Councillor.
We own several properties around that corner, and collectively we'd be paying over 10 grand a quarter to council. And I'll tell you right now, I am withholding my rate payment until a response is heard. I don't like doing that. I like paying our money to the city. I like supporting our city, as a lot of businesses do. But
Okay,
Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Skinner.
Through the mayor, a quick question there. Good answer at rates. That was one of the questions there. Goodwill. Do you think you've lost, being the length of the time, you've lost a bit of goodwill, or what I'm saying is, as soon as the roads are done, will it take some time before customers start coming back into a habit of using your shop, so it's an ongoing loss? Would that be
for sure, Tim, it doesn't happen quickly like that. So we're then going to have to spend a good chunk of money on advertising, and possibly even some incentives within that advertising to draw our customers back. So it doesn't happen, you know, we've seen it before, it doesn't happen easily by itself. So it's a bit of a double whammy that obviously we'll be looking to further fund some advertising and look to touch base with our customers again. But that we just can't do that while Waimea Road is like it is. Cones, narrow lanes.
And just quickly, it reminds me a bit of, but on a bigger scale, to the dairy on Brook.
Yes.
Having, and that took a while to get custom back. Is there anything apart from financial, anything that we can do you think you'd like to see us do to try and help get this customer base to get things back to normal, apart from the physical works?
No, look, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it about us or our business there. But if this is the start for a bit of impetus to get a policy together regarding supporting businesses of Nelson in time of need through a rate remission program, I'm happy to see that happen today. And hey, we'll rise again. Yep.
Councillor Ackland.
I've got a quick question through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to understand, it just occurred to me, is the issue that you see in the, I presume it's a drop in turnover that you're talking about,
Yes.
and is that because more traffic's preferring to use Rocks Road, or is it because traffic can't access?
Well, as I said just before,
Sorry, I might have missed
so
that, yeah.
when roadwork signs go up, when cones go up, people don't stop. We rely so much on that smooth transition off Waimea Road.
Yeah.
As soon as cones and signs are up, it's a no-no. People will just go straight through. Yeah. Seeing contractors around, swinging signs, sometimes it's confusing for a lot of people, and it's just eyes front, yeah.
I see.
But
Thanks.
have you had a road count done recently? Do you know what your numbers have been since the project started in April?
Not sure. Good questions, though. That's a good thing to have a look at. Thanks.
Okay, John, thanks very much indeed for coming and talking to us this morning and explaining the situation that you've had to put up with, and I think you've done that extremely well.
Thanks.
Our job is to get back to you as soon as we've had some discussions and try and give you some sort of assurance that we're seriously looking at this problem.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, John,
And
thanks
thank you
very
all.
much.
Appreciate that. Have a great day.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chairman, I understand, one of the things we can do in public forum is ask for reports.
Yep.
And what I would like to know is what our options are when it comes to compensating or helping businesses who have been affected in this way. And I'm also interested in knowing what happens in other parts of the country.
He's raised a very good point, and I think it's something, Matt, that we need to sit down and have a general discussion about, because this construction situation is going to continue in other parts of the city as we move forward, and maybe it's something we need to have a conversation about, and we'll be encouraging that, and we'll get back to John as well.
Sorry, Mr.
So I
Chairman,
don't
can
want
you
to
be a
talk
bit clear about what you mean by a conversation?
I don't want to talk about it now. I want to get rid of the public forum.
Okay.
But what I'm saying to you is we will be having a conversation amongst ourselves about situations like John to see if we can come up with some sort of a policy, right?
Okay, well, again, I would like to see on paper, in a report, an explanation of what our options are.
Yep.
And what other councils do around the country to help businesses which are in this position.
That'll be part and parcel of our conversation. Thanks, John. And finally, in the public forum this morning, David, Cynthia, Ainsley, welcome. You're going to join us, Ainsley? Oh, okay. Yep.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing us to come here and make a presentation to you. We're aware of the fact that you've been very busy on the public forum this morning, so we'll be as clear and concise as we can be. We've circulated in advance to everyone the wee document that we wanted to focus you on, which is really to do with issues relating to the protection of parkland, and in particular in this case the Maitai Riverside parkland that runs between Trafalgar Street and Nile Street, and simply to focus the committee on one particular issue right now, which is the incursion of vehicles into that space, which over the last several years has basically happened in two completely different areas, but in a very similar kind of way. One of which the council has dealt with, and the other of which at the moment still remains undealt with. And we're really just raising that as an issue for you because we would really like you to focus on exactly that kind of point. Basically what's happened in the last umpteen years is that cars have begun parking in a variety of different areas of that Maitai Riverside parkland. One of them on Demet Street and the other in the area around Riverside Pool. The one around Riverside Pool you've recently taken, or the previous council has recently taken action on by putting up a barrier to stop vehicles from getting into the park area at that point. And that has been very effective, and we want to commend you completely for having done that.
Can we ask for them to put it
Yeah, can that be the area at the bottom of that, if you could go a little further please, is the area around Riverside Pool as it was before on the left and as it was when the barrier was being put up, which is now in place completely, which has been extremely effective. It's basically stopped vehicles from engaging in parking on the edge of the parkland, and it stopped those vehicles also from continuing into the parkland, being a danger to pedestrians and other people using that parkland space. The area at the top, however, is a completely different story. If we go back to the previous two photographs, they don't show up particularly well on the screen there, but you can see them, I hope, on the printed copy that by now you will have got. Basically what's happened there is that a number of years ago this area was completely parkland, full stop. It was green space, etc. Gradually, under parking pressure over time, cars started to park on the edge of Demet Street by putting themselves in between the trees that existed in the parkland. When the council was asked by us and other people about protecting that area, the response was, well, obviously the main thing we need to make sure is that the roots of the trees are not disturbed. So the response to cars parking in that area was simply to say, instead of actually putting up a barrier to stop it from happening, what we would do, or what the council would do, is to put down chips in order to stop the vehicles from damaging the roots of the trees. When asked about whether or not it's possible to stop vehicles from actually parking there by giving some form of parking infringement, the statement was made several times, we can't possibly do that because it's not actually an official car parking area, it's actually recreation reserve, which strikes us as being rather confusing and also not taking appropriate steps to protect one of the key elements of the city, which is basically its park space. Now, I guess the main simple question that we're trying to raise with you today as a matter of principle is, can the council work on the principle of protecting its park space appropriately? Because if so, the area that's on Demet Street at the moment is not being protected.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I think it's pretty clear actually. That's very helpful. Thank you. Do you want to stay there for a moment and we'll just ask Ainsley to do her bit. Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of Nelson Walkers Unite regarding item 7 on today's agenda, the Anzac Park link. We believe council need to recognise that Anzac Park is a very special place for many Nelsonians, and any proposal to put a cycleway through Anzac Park should be widely advertised in council's publications and in displays in the libraries in the council building. No consultation with the wider public has been undertaken, and we would ask council to defer this project until a community engagement process has taken place. Nelson Walkers Unite were stakeholders when the Out and About active travel policy was formed, and during that consultation process, Nelson Walkers indicated a preference for the cycleway to be located on a Haven Road, which is a quiet street and it wouldn't restrict traffic. It also seems premature to be making decisions on cycle linkages between St Vincent Street and the CBD before NZTA's announcement on the Southern Link and the design process that will take place if the road is approved. The path through Anzac Park is popular with walkers accessing the CBD, mothers with prams and small children. They come down from Washington Valley. It's a really good access link, and senior members of the community. And enlarging the path to accommodate cyclists is an erosion and intrusion into one of the few green spaces in our CBD. The Out and About travel policy states on page 5 our desired outcomes: sensitive network planning and design, ensuring tranquil and contemplative areas available throughout the city. This proposal contravenes that outcome. Anzac Park is a place of remembrance with its memorial and the gateway honouring the Maori Battalion. It is not appropriate to have a cycleway through such a place of peace and remembrance. I'd like to quote a part of an email from one of our supporters. I think it is vitally important that quiet, contemplative spaces be preserved and protected, particularly this park, as it is a place of remembrance for those who died. I think it is inappropriate that this special place be used for anything other than peace, tranquility and respectfulness. Cyclists should be required to dismount within the park's boundaries and be respectful of the purpose for which the park was intended. The council document fails to mention the high use of the grassed area of the park, which is well used particularly in the summer months with people picnicking and enjoying the sun and the shade. The proposal for a raised upstand on the path edge is unacceptable too, as it would create a danger to senior users of the park and families with young children. And it also introduces a hazard not mentioned in the council document, that access to the toilets from the grassed area is across that proposed cycleway. Haven Road is occupied by car wash business, the Ministry of Education, which provides visitor car parks, the Contract Bridge Club, which again has parking at the rear of its building, and the delivery section of the warehouse. So there's very little requirement to provide car parks for those businesses. There are 2 5-minute parks adjacent to the toilets, but the rest of the parking is long-term, free, unlimited time parking, and is frequently used by Freedom campers, particularly over the summer. There were 11 there yesterday morning, and I counted about more than 8 last night, so it gets well used for that. So we would urge you to reconsider this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ainsley. Any questions? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few from me. Thank you for the presentation. One, I'm of the understanding that people are allowed to cycle through Anzac Park at the moment. Is that not the case?
It's a footpath. I'm not sure about the legality of cycling
Well,
through there.
I'm pretty sure they are allowed to cycle through there because it's a park and people are allowed to cycle through parks. So my question is, why would we consult on allowing people to cycle through Anzac Park when they're already allowed to cycle through Anzac Park and they already do cycle through Anzac Park?
I think this would be a different amount of cyclists. If you're directing cyclists particularly to go through there, it would increase the number. You may occasionally get the odd cyclist through there now. I don't know whether it's illegally allowed or not.
I'm pretty sure it is legally allowed. Next question through the chair.
I think it would be a different quantity.
Okay. My next question relates to the Southern Link, and you said we shouldn't do anything until we know about the Southern Link. I understand the Southern Link proposal has always included cycleways down St Vincent Street. So what difference would it make?
I don't know what the design would be and how they would aim to get cyclists and traffic through from St Vincent Street to the CBD and down to the Rutherford. It just seems a bit slightly premature to design one thing without thinking of the consequences on something else happening in that area.
As I said, I think Southern Link's always
One
included
more.
a cycleway.
No opinions.
My last question, thank you. My last question through the chair is, you talk about the purpose of the park. Are you aware that the RSA supports the option of a shared pathway for cyclists and pedestrians?
Yes, that's in the document, but...
So you disagree with them?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I just, when you look at the plans, it looks quite logical to put a cycleway down the side there. But when you go into Anzac Park, it becomes obvious that that's inappropriate. It's a very tranquil, quiet place that would cut through where people walk. When I was walking through there the other day, a young woman came through with triplets in a triple buggy, plus a preschooler on a scooter, walking down there as access through. She took up most of that park. And if it's got an upstand on either side, where do the cyclists go? How does she cope with all her children if there's cyclists whizzing through there?
One more very quick question.
No, I think you've had a fair...
Please.
No, you've had a fair shot. Councillor Ackland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, man. You've read the report, the agenda that we're considering today, the item that we're considering. Two of the things that, it seems like a small difference between whether it's inside the park or over the fence outside the park in terms of the two designs, in terms of the costings, is about a $5,000 difference. but one of the two reasons that it's recommended that we adopt the recommendation to go through the park is that there's a consequence on trees and shrubs and so on if the path is moved outside the park. And it just struck me that one of the things that's been contentious about the proposed Mai Tai shared pathway was that it was going to remove trees and vegetation, and that was a strong resistance from the community in respect to the removal of trees.
It would depend on how you did it through Haven Road. You could perhaps move out the car parking a bit to make more space, or else you could use it as a quiet street and have the cyclists sharing the street as a quiet street.
Yeah, thanks. No, just the point I'm asking though is that in the recommendation, so in the report that we were considering, it says that there would be removal of that vegetation, changing the nature of the park if we were to go for the other one. Do you have a view
There were
about
four
that?
options, so it wouldn't necessarily have to take the option that would remove trees.
Oh, I see. Okay, and the second question I've got about the report, the difference in this project is the security aspect. So, and I note as well from my personal background in the courts and criminal defence practice, there's a lot of alcohol consumption and a lot of violence often around those toilets, especially in the evenings, but also around alcohol consumption in that park during the day. Do you have any views about, I know you said it's a quite contemplative space, but in terms of increasing security by having more of a presence of people using that park throughout different times of the day?
Well, it seems slightly odd to expect the cyclist to be your security service in the park, but I don't think they'd be using it so much in the evening anyway at night, which is when I would imagine the security problem is at its greatest.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ainsley, one of the things I've noticed over time is that people always take the shortest route. And they take an informal route. I've been at functions at the Anzac Memorial, and they're very meaningful to me for family reasons and other. And I've seen cyclists riding down the existing path, so they do use it at all times. And with the cycleway to be constructed down the Southern Link, they're going to use that path whether it's widened or not. How do you feel that can be stopped?
Well, I think they could be directed onto Haven Road. There are alternatives
They always
to
take the
having them
shortest
come
route,
through
Ainsley.
there. Well, Haven Road would be shorter, in fact, if they came along that piece of Haven Road. I think there are alternatives, and as Cynthia says, you could always have a walk your bike sign, and that would, if they had to walk their bikes through Anzac Park, they would use Haven Road.
I doubt they'll do that either.
Right.
But Haven Road's right there beside it. It's a very quiet little street with nothing much but car parking. It
Yes.
doesn't seem to me as though it's not possible to use that as an alternative to putting bicycles through what is a memorial park.
Thanks, Ainsley.
Thank you. No other questions? Thank you very much, the three of you, for you bringing your concerns in here this morning. And as you're aware, we'll be discussing the Anzac Park on the agenda here today. So, thank you. Right, that's the end of the public forum. Just to give you an idea, I really like to keep them to half an hour, not an hour. I think we just keep that in the back of our mind. It does mean that the meetings will go a little faster.
Mr. Chair, just before you conclude public forum, I'd just like to follow up on the presentations to ascertain what the committee is going to seek in terms of further reports or how you're going to address the issues. There was one there, and from obviously one item's on the agenda today. You had a presentation from Jill Williams in relation to the fish shop, and I'm just wondering what the committee intends to do in relation to that matter, and further what the committee intends to do in terms of Mr. John Gordy's presentation, if the committee has questions that they wish to officers to subsequently answer, or whether reports are coming forward.
Okay.
Could I have some clarification on those matters, and then further on the issue in relation to the David Eyre's presentation in relation to the Mai Tai?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Jill's issue is being addressed in the agenda today. as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Gordy's raised, I think, a very good point, and I think we need to have a conversation about a policy or whatever concerning works, and the messages from David and his team have been given to Mr. Levertis, and no doubt we'll get an answer from you on that problem. And the one regarding Anzac Park, we're going to address very shortly.
So, Mr. Chair, could I just note perhaps that matters in relation to rates of remissions would be a matter for the Governance Committee, not the Works and Infrastructure Committee. So I'm just wondering how you might wish to progress that. They'd need to be seen in that policy context.
Well, I thought, Madam Mayor, that probably you and I might have a conversation first of all about the issue that's been raised by Mr. Gordy and decide, if anywhere, where we're going to go with it. And I'm not talking specifically about rates of remission or anything like that at this stage.
Oh, well, perhaps that's something that the committee needs to decide if that's how they wish to address it.
Well, I've made that decision. Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. I was just following up on what the Mayor has mentioned. The issue that Mr. Gordy has raised is a deeply fundamental one. You're talking about economic loss to businesses, and I think this is a significant issue, and it's not one that requires much more than just a conversation or even a workshop. It's a question of equity and fairness. If we make a case for Mr. Gordy, there are other businesses around there, and I'm concerned about basically the floodgates principle, I suppose, is we allow for one, there are businesses that are affected by our activities day in, day out, year in, year out. In the normal course of business, we do have an impact, and I would tread very, very carefully. I would say that we probably would need some advice from our officers, certainly from the Chief Executive, before we even considered a workshop or even putting it on any agenda. So I would probably ask that we ask for a report from the Chief Executive about what are the fundamental issues and whether that influences a workshop or we develop a policy or not. But it is a deeply fundamental issue, and I am very, very mindful of the floodgates effect.
Now you can see why I don't want to have an open conversation this morning. But yes, we'll certainly be asking for a report after this. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you. It was a comment about that particular item, Mr. Chair, in that I'm sure businesses can prove what their last 5 years' take is, and the difference in an event such as what Mr. Gordy is experiencing. They can easily prove their figures are around an event, and I do think it's probably worthy of a report looking at I mean, he was asking for a rates remission. He wasn't. I don't believe he was asking for any more than that, and that is within our capabilities of reviewing and discussing that potential possibility. I think we should look at it.
Okay. Any other comment?
Well, again, going back to this floodgates principle, is that if you look at common law jurisdictions, is that very, very reluctant to reward, I suppose, or compensate for economic loss.
Yeah, I think, if I may just interrupt you, I think what we should be doing is asking the Chief Executive to look at this issue and for us to have a conversation amongst ourselves before we come back and start talking about it publicly, because quite simply some people will say things in this room and end up putting themselves in an awkward position without doing their homework, and that work has to be done. Are we going to sit here and talk about this issue all morning?
No. Well, maybe, Mr. Chair, but I think I think it's an important issue, as Councillor McGurk said. But my preference would be for the Chief Executive to return a report to the committee, so that actually the conversation is not held between us, but actually, because if people would have a misunderstanding, it's important that misunderstandings are answered in a public forum, so that people in the community who might have a misunderstanding about council's ability and obligations also hear those questions and hear the answers. So my preference is for the Chief Executive to simply bring a report back to this or the Governance Committee on this issue, and I think it needs to have some, well, the Chief Executive will decide what sort of advice she requires, but it would probably have some legal input, I'd imagine, and that would be an appropriate way for it to be brought back and dealt with as an item on an agenda. So I can move for such a report to be prepared if I have a second. Okay.
Well, you might have to just wait. I don't think we can move.
We don't move.
And we haven't even opened the meeting. You can? Okay. You've moved? Yep. Who seconded? You second. All those in favour?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Right. Apologies. None today. Confirmation of order of business as outlined on your agenda. There's no changes to that. And has anybody got any interests they wish to declare? Be mindful of that fact as we go through this agenda, please. Item number 5, status report. Mr. Levertis.
Through the Chair, I'm happy to take any questions that the committee may have on any of those items.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, it's great to see the improvements that we've been planning for Fiddle Lane taking shape. I'm just curious, looking at the wires that have been put up there, about their height, because as we all know, the area is known for some Yahooish behaviour, and I'm just curious as to whether the height of those wires is high enough to prevent any Yahooish behaviour damaging what's planned for Fiddle Lane.
Through the Chair, I will investigate the height. I dare say that no matter what the height is, if there's going to be unacceptable behaviour, people will make an attempt to disrupt what's there, but I have no information that would lead me to think that those would be open to vandalism more than anything else in the city. But I will check the height.
Thank you. And my other question relates to the Waimea Road issues and opportunities, and I see that the work we decided to do there is going to be considered for construction in either the 17-18 or the 18-19 years. Is that a delay? It seems like a long way out from when we made that decision.
Through the Chair, it's a matter of progressing that and prioritising that in terms of all our other workloads. That's when that work is being scheduled for, and as I've said in the status report, it could either be considered either in the 17-18 or 18-19, depending on what we do on that consultation, because we first have to undertake consultation, bring that consultation back to this committee, and then figure out how and when that will be progressed in terms of actual implementation. So there is still a bit of work to be done before actual physical works get undertaken, and one of those, as I said, consultation, we have to report that back to this council and then figure out when the construction programs will be.
Mr. Chairman, so one of those measures from memory is if I'm right in thinking this, it's a pedestrian refuge on Waimea Road. That seems to me like a pretty simple job. Are we going to have to wait that long for some increased safety in the area?
Through the Chair, there are two. The one pedestrian access has been constructed as part of the York Stormwater Works. There is some works to determine where an alternative or another crossing needs to be undertaken between Te Kuka and Boundary Road, and that work still needs to be undertaken. It is a substantial piece of work to actually figure out where that location is, to consult, bring that back to council, and then figure out where it's going to be. As I said, all of this is in relation to our entire work program, and while on its own it may not be deemed to be a big piece of work, but in relation to all the other stuff that we're doing, we need to plan accordingly.
And if it's anything like Tandewi Drive, it takes 10 years. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Laurie's got a better memory than me, because when I got to the Waimea Road issues, and it talks about opportunities 3, 4 and 7 in table 5.1 of a report that's not attached to this. My memory's not great, so I have actually asked if we could have those today.
They're here.
Thank you. Could they be distributed?
So I have printed those out, and
I think it would be helpful in the future to have those, if there's anything that it's, obviously Councillor Laurie's got a much better memory than I.
Okay.
In the meantime, I've got a question on the Church Street concept. It says that a developed design will be brought back to the Works and Infrastructure Committee prior to construction, but it hasn't got a date on there, Mr. Chair.
through the chair, the Works and Infrastructure, we are waiting for the schedule of committees. Once we know when the committees are, we will plan accordingly and see where our design takes and which Works and Infrastructure Committee we need to target. There are no finalised dates at this stage, to the best of my knowledge, in the new calendar year, so I cannot figure out which one we're going to go to.
Thank you. And just one more, Mr. Chair, was the resolution looks to me, just remind me, for a budget of design only and no works. Am I correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. So the resolution says that what this resolution said is that we get on with the work, with the design, and that we bring that back to the Works and Infrastructure Committee, detailing all the costs and the concept for approval. So no work will be undertaken until it has been approved by this committee.
So, Mr. Chair, does that budget need to come up in the annual plan?
It does.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you. Just in the wider context of Waimea Road and the issues, what is the planned completion date for the current works on Waimea Road, and when will it be fully operational? Is it at the planned date? Is it on target? Is it above, out of target, or what?
So through the chair, that's a question that's not specific to the status report, and I'm happy to answer that question outside of this meeting, but I need to take questions only specific to the status report.
No, I think if you can answer the question, you'll save everybody a lot of time.
Through the chair, I'll let Shane approach the table and answer that question.
By Christmas. Thank you. Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, a document's just been tabled. I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a loss to know how that assists me with the status report. I understand it relates to the projects on Waimea Road, and I do recall this meeting, and I had a feeling that some of this list, is this the list that is all proceeding? There were some items that weren't from the previous report. I'm going to dredge through my memory, so I'm just not sure whether this is it or not.
So through the chair, I had it through the chair. I had a discussion with the chair this morning, and I thought that this may happen, is producing a table as part of the status report when it wasn't in relation to the context of the entire report. And I did discuss with the chair that in order for either existing councillor members or new councillor members to familiarise themselves with this particular item, that they needed to perhaps have the entire report, and not just, I wouldn't say an arbitrary table, but a table that was referred to in that report. And so what I have replicated for you is an extract of, is that table that was in that original report. It doesn't set the context, unfortunately, and I was a little bit at sixes and sevens as to whether we should have distributed that table or the entire report, because exactly as you've raised, Madam Mayor, it doesn't set the context. But what it does relate to is if you look at opportunities 3, 4 and 7, so if you look at the table that I've given you, in order those will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and what the committee decided was we would do 3, 4 and 7, and if you recall, we actually brought a report back to the following Works and Infrastructure Committee to get the pedestrian crossing at the York undertaken with urgency. So I apologise, but the table on its own doesn't set the context, and I was concerned about that.
Thank you, Mr. Lavertus. Through you, Mr. Chair. So, no, now I assumed I could number those off 1, 2, 7 or 8 actually if I turn over the page, but I did remember that there were some that weren't going to necessarily proceed. So in relation to 4, which is the pedestrian severance across Waimea Road, coming back to Councillor Laurie's question, that is showing as funding from the minor improvement budget in 2015-16. So what, am I right in understanding that what we're saying, and I just want to make sure I understand this on the status report, that construction will now be considered in either 17-18 or 18-19. So essentially, Councillor Laurie's question before was, is this a deferment of the project as planned? And I think from what I can see here, the answer to that question is yes, that it was going to be in the minor improvement budget in 15-16. Now it is being deferred until 17-18 or 18-19.
And through the Chair, and that was a consequence of the resolution that was passed by the Works and Infrastructure Committee, that we actually needed to undertake further work.
Right.
And as a result of that, the time frame that we have to undertake consultation, bring that back to Works and Infrastructure, will mean that it won't be constructed this financial year, but it will need to be considered in future construction programs, potentially 17-18 or 18-19, depending on the information that we bring back and the decisions made by the Works and Infrastructure Committee.
All right. So just for clarification, because this is why I was concerned, that when I looked at this and I looked at what's in the status report, you could very easily get confused because the actual resolution of council meant that what was in the report couldn't be delivered to those timeframes because there were some additional steps that needed to go in, well, or it potentially could have, but it was going to make it very, very tight. So what Mr. Lavertus is saying, he's got to go out and talk to, do some consultation with the community, because there'll be lots of car parking and all sorts of other things down there, and there'll be positions where people will think it's an okay place to cross and not. Once we get that back, that'll just mean it'll tip into construction in the following year, because normally we do design first, then construct in different years. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
That's 100% accurate through the Chair.
Right. No other questions? Right, would someone be kind enough? It's been moved by Councillor Noonan, seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The ayes have it. Right, item number 6, transport and roading. Is Mr. Palmer doing this or you?
Sorry, through the Chair, and your Chair's report, you're going
to... just a couple of items. First of all, the report on Tresillian Avenue. Due to the fact that we had a rather big disturbance in the city, the staff haven't had time to get that report together for you for today, so apologies. Secondly, there's a press release going out today to advise everyone that their water may be a different colour due to the shake-up, and the pipes have moved around a bit during that shake-up, so you may have a period of time where the water is dirty but it's safe to drink, so you need to be aware of that. As far as this committee is concerned, I had a couple of notes. One of them is, yes, as I mentioned earlier on, I would like to keep the public forums to no more than half an hour, and so you might find that it's going to be a bit restrictive for those that come here on a frequent basis. I also like to delegate, and at some stage during this term I would like the Deputy Chair to chair one or two of these meetings, and hopefully in the next 12 months to give them some experience.
Point of order, sorry, Mr. Chair, but I understand that you can only chair a meeting if you're not here.
Well, that's exactly what will happen.
So you're going to disappear?
Yes. And that's not a point of order. God. And to give Councillor Walker a bit of experience when I'm absent, we're the one committee that spends probably more money than most, and we bury it under the ground. So I think it's going to be opportune for all members of the committee to try and spend as much time as possible poking your nose into some of the works around town so you get an idea of exactly what we are doing physically. Right, let's get on to the next one, item number 6. Who's going to do that, sir?
Through the Chair, Mr. Rees Palmer will talk to that report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I'd like to draw your attention to a couple of corrections that need to be made to the report. The first one is in section 3.4 on page 11. At the end of that sentence, it should say, which was included in the cost estimate for option 1. So apologies for that. And the second correction I'd like to note is there's been a handout distributed around this particular handout here. And in the final production of the agenda, unfortunately, this image covered the text, which we've since highlighted in yellow. So that should replace pages 24 and 25 of your agenda. Turn to the project. The purpose of this project is to connect the railway reserve at St Vincent Street through to the CBD. And the target user group for that is what we call the interested but concerned user. That's the very large demographic that are keen to cycle, maybe cycle for recreation, but aren't cycling as a means of getting from A to B for their daily journeys, simply because they don't feel comfortable on the road. There's a high volume of school children in there, and there's obviously reluctance from parents to allow their children to cycle to school because of the dangers perceived or real on the road. And so in order to encourage that rather large user group, the interested but concerned user group, we really need separated facilities or shared path facilities that are away from the busy road network to encourage that mode. The report and business case recommends a shared path through Anzac Park with an associated crossing across Rutherford Street. This is going to serve that refuge across Rutherford Street will serve both the existing pedestrian desire line there through to Wakatu car park, as well as the new people on bikes from the new cycle facility. The key benefits of option 1, the Anzac Park link, is it'll provide a high quality consistent path alignment from St Vincent Street through into Wakatu car park. It'll increase the passive surveillance of Anzac Park, and it results in minimal car park loss. The key disadvantages are that there's a loss of amenity to Anzac Park, and we've obviously already heard that very strongly through the public forum today. And there is potential conflict with users within Anzac Park as a result of that shared path. In the business case, we also identify other options for consideration. The second most preferred option, if you like, is option 3, and that is a path adjacent to Haven Road. The parking on Haven Road would require to be reconfigured. At the moment, there's parallel parking on the south side and angle parking on the north side. And in order to create the space there to get a high quality cycle path through there, past the toilet block, past the substation and the like, we would need to reconfigure that parking space. The numbers used within the business case are on the assumption that we would remove all parking on the south side of the road, so that's in front of the car wash and the Ministry of Education and the Bridge Club and the like, and move the angle parking over to create some space between the park and the front of those angle car parks. There's other ways we could reconfigure that space, but reconfiguring it that way minimises the loss. So the key benefit of that option 3, a path down Haven Road, is there'd be no loss of amenity to Anzac Park. There'd be minimal conflict or potential for conflict with path users, with the key disadvantages being that there'd be significant parking loss on Haven Road. At this stage of the concept design, we're estimating somewhere between 14 and 18 spaces, and it also requires 7 trees to be removed. I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, just a couple of questions to you. First of all, on page 24, and also in one of the earlier ones, you've got under timescale council approval of the route 10th of November and start detailed design 10th of November. What does that mean? Is that a mistake?
Through the chair, unfortunately, when this was written, the date for this particular meeting was the 10th of November. It's obviously since the date changed and we haven't updated the business case.
Okay, and the other question I need to ask you is, under option 3, you have no benefits.
Through the chair, yes, that's why I did identify that, and that's why we distributed this extra sheet here. We've got a spare there for the chairman.
All right. I just got the costs. Thank you. Okay, those are my 2 quick questions. Any other questions first? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Palmer. Just a few from me. Start just points of clarification, really. I'm right in thinking, aren't I, that people they're currently allowed to cycle through Anzac Park?
Through the chair, yes. At the moment, there's no signs erected or bylaws in place that prevent people from cycling through Anzac Park.
Sure. And every sort of idea, every sort of concept for the Southern Link that you know of and that I know of, I suspect, includes a cycleway.
Through the chair, certainly the concept that I've seen, the most recent one through the arterial traffic study in 2010, included some form of cycle facility. Quite what that might or might not look like into the future, I'm afraid, would be making a large assumption.
But you, through the chair, you would expect in the future there still to be people cycling down St Vincent Street, commuting down St Vincent Street, whether or not the Southern Link gets built or not?
Through the chair, it could be there, or it could potentially be down an upgraded facility on Vanguard Street. We really don't know at this point in time.
Okay.
It's far too early to say.
I've got 3 more. They're good questions, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. Mr. Palmer,
When has there been a restriction on asking questions of officers during an item for the council to consider?
From now.
Well,
Carry on.
Can you make a ruling on that, Mr. Chair? Because I don't understand that to be a
otherwise,
prohibition within standing orders that councillors can't ask questions of officers in order to get clarification.
Otherwise, Councillor Ackland, you end up getting yourself into a debate. It's simply question time for clarification. Thank you.
That's helpful, but perhaps the issue could be then whether or not it does enter debate rather than whether or not it's a question, limit on number of questions, because I have a number of questions as well.
Yeah, well, I'm listening to you guys, don't worry about it. And if I think that you're straying from the question and enter into the debate, I'll mention it.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my next question is, we have cyclists going through Anzac Park at the moment. Do we have a lot of accidents involving cyclists and pedestrians in Anzac Park?
Through the chair, we did a search of the 0800 cycle crash database and also the CAS database, and there's nothing reported on those for pedestrian cycle conflicts. We also did a search of the service request system, and there was a couple of requests there, a couple of entries there around antisocial behaviour in Anzac Park, and that was all that we were able to find when we looked at the databases of information that we have.
Which is not, through the chair, cyclists, that's people doing other things. Okay.
Sorry, may I just for the sake of new councillors, Rhys, can you just, using abbreviations, CAS, if you could just, for the sake of new councillors, tell us what that is, or even existing councillors.
Through the chair, apologies for that. There's a lot of jargon and acronyms in the transport space. So the CAS database, that's the crash analysis system. That's the database that the New Zealand Transport Agency maintain, and it's where all of the data from crashes that the police collect and events that the police go to that happen in association with the road network get added into. So that's the nationwide crash database. Nelson City Council identified many years ago that a lot of pedestrian cycle crashes and cycle crashes were occurring outside of the key road network, so we created another database that we call 0800 Cycle Crash, where people are able to go onto our website or phone in and note down conflicts or crashes that occur on places like the railway reserve, which are outside of the road network and often the police don't have any visibility of. So they are the two main sources of crash data that we have and that we use.
Thank you. Through the chair, which schools would benefit from this, having a shared pathway through Anzac Park?
Through the chair, I think probably the main benefactor would be the intermediate school, I would envisage, at the top end of Vanguard Street. They have a nice connection from the railway reserve down there. But I think it's important to note that this path is about connecting the St Vincent Street into the CBD, so I would see that the far greater benefactor would be people that would have a destination within the CBD, and it would also enable the connection through into the Maitai path in the future.
And my final question to the chair. Haven Road, strikes me that there's a lot of reversing that goes on there, because cars park with their nose in and they reverse when they leave the park. That strikes me as less than ideal for introducing new cyclists who aren't that confident and everyone like that to the area. What are your thoughts?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. I think it's important to note that option 3 puts the cycle path in front of the cars, so they wouldn't be exposed to that reversing manoeuvre. But under a quiet streets option, I don't recall whether that's option 4 or 5, that would be a concern.
Thank you. Councillor McGurk.
Just a couple of questions, Mr Chair. Thanks for indulging. Option 4 talks about a quiet street, Haven Road, and it requires the closing off of the St Vincent Street entrance. Was that consideration also considered for the other options, options 1 and 3? Closing it off?
Through the chair, no, it wasn't. That was considered on its own as a quiet street, as the main thoroughfare to connect from St Vincent through to the CBD, so that you would minimise that through traffic and minimise the conflict.
Yeah, so I'd just like to, if you indulge, just develop this a little bit further. So what's the main purpose of that section of Haven Road? Is it to provide parking for either day commuters or users of Anzac Park or businesses in that particular area, or is it a through street, which is the predominant use?
Through the chair, at the moment, the predominant use of that section of Haven Road at the moment would be parking and localised access. There is, however, something in the order of 1,500 vehicles a day that do use it, and I think that is potentially to avoid the traffic signals at Halifax, Rutherford, as a way of getting across to the Hastings Street, St Vincent area from the CBD. But it has been heavily traffic calmed to try and minimise that through movement because of the angle parking. The primary function for me is parking and property access.
Okay, and probably just one final question. In terms of options, I think you talked about the shading effect on Haven Road. If you took the cycleway through Haven Road, and it was the shading effect, was consideration given putting it onto the south side of Haven Road? So the idea being is that you come around where the Globe Hotel is, down the south side in front of the businesses, take away the parking on that side of the street, and you've got that raised area traffic calming where it joins the bottom of Vanguard Street and Haven Street, and doing some traffic calming or some kind of engineering options there to take you up to that. Was that an option that was explored?
Through the chair, it was, and the main reason for a preference for the north side was there were no vehicle access ways. So that was the main reason. We figured that the frost effect was far less of a risk than the vehicle access effect.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. You've mentioned there's two types of cyclists, the interested but concerned, I think is the way you've described them, and the commuters. What routes do the commuters use now?
Through the chair, in the
how do they get to the CBD?
The definitions around the types of cyclists is actually 4 types, but there's about 60% that sit in the interested but concerned category, according to international research. But in terms of routes that commuters are using at the moment, we've recently completed the St Vincent path, and that's getting some reasonable use, and currently it's a mix of riding between down through Anzac Park and also using Haven Road. There's also some usage of the Gloucester Hardy Street link across into the CBD. So that would be the two primary routes from the Railway Reserve at the moment that I understand that people that have a destination within the CBD that have come from the Railway Reserve are using.
But you don't know the predominant route?
Offhand, no, I haven't got those.
What do you
those
suspect
numbers.
it is?
I suspect there's probably a reasonable number using Haven Road. There's also quite a number that will come down Gloucester and then come down Vanguard, because Vanguard at the moment is quite a wide road. So yeah, I don't have those splits with me, and I don't have that data, I'm afraid.
And related to the question, follow up, interested but concerned cyclists doing their recreation or whatever, if they're coming down there, do you think they'll take the route through the park? Because hey, there's a lot of interest in there, rather than riding down Haven Road. So even if you make the cycleway down Haven Road, isn't it likely that a large majority of interested and concerned people will want to ride through there and see what it's all about?
Through the chair, if I can just clarify, if option 3 was implemented, is that the, yes. I think that would very much depend on how you treated the points of entry into Anzac Park and what the quality of the path was like. You provide a good quality path and people will typically respect it and stay on it. It just depends how you treat that entry treatment.
Right, thank you. Your worship.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Reece, just a couple of questions. At 3.4 in the report on page 11, you refer to the poppy artwork that has been requested by the RSA, and you say that it is included in cost estimate for option 5. Is it only option 5? So do I take it from that you only get poppy art if you go for option 5?
Through the chair, no, there's I mentioned a correction to that part of the report at the start, and it was option 1.
Apologies, I missed that. Is that on this table document, or was that just verbal?
That was verbal, I'm afraid.
Apologies,
yes.
I just didn't
so
get all
yes,
that at
it's included in option 1, and
thank
if
you.
you'll just bear with me, I'll find out what the cost of that allowance was, because it hasn't been added to the other preferred options, just so that you have some understanding.
That would be good, because I just thought we wanted to go with another option, but wanted the poppy art as well. We'd want to know what that might involve.
Through the chair, at the moment, we've made an allowance of $5,000 for that within option 1.
Okay, that's fine. So a couple of follow-up questions, Mr. Chair. Just with regard to success factors, so if the objective here is to increase the uptake of cycling from interested and concerned cyclists, what sort of targets have you set in this in terms of success? So we're going to spend money on infrastructure. We want to have some performance measures that said, well, actually, we've been successful. So what does that look like? So comparative between now and what success would look like.
Through the chair, we have an overriding objective or goal within both the Regional Land Transport Plan and the Asset Management Plan to increase the amount of active travel, that's by walking and cycling and also by bus, to 25% of work trips by 2018. So this project, I would see, would contribute to that very high level objective there. In terms of this project here, it's about taking the numbers that we have currently using the bottom half of the St Vincent Street path and giving them a very safe path through the CBD. Unfortunately, I don't have off the top of my head the numbers we used when we did the economics to back up the reason for this project, but we'd be talking about in the hundreds for this to be a success.
So can I just clarify, is that hundreds per day?
Yes, yeah.
So low hundreds, high hundreds? I'm just trying to envisage what success looks like.
Through the chair, I'm afraid I don't have those numbers. I would be in the order of 500 cyclists a day.
Okay.
But I would need to confirm.
Increase.
That. Yes, correct.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to, if I can ask clarification, what are the current cycle numbers, so daily now? And then apologies if they're in the report. Earthquakes have meant we've all had a fairly busy week. If you could just direct me to the page number, Mr. Palmer, that'd be helpful.
Through the chair, we detail the numbers in page 15 of the report. So at the moment, we have user numbers of 367 at the top of the Bishopdale Hill,
Yeah.
and about 250 on St Vincent Street in the section between Gloucester and Haven.
Okay, that's great, thank you. All right, I want to just take you to page 16. And I was feeling quite good about this report till I got to page 16, I have to say. And then I looked at this map, and I came back to this discussion that we've had on multiple occasions around what is described at the top, which is about this project, and it tells us it's to connect an arterial cycle route through Nelson. And I went down and I looked at the map and I looked at where we're talking about, and I was interested in the questions before as to who's likely to use this, and the responses were principally for cycling to school. It'll be the intermediate school, and so I presume you're going to draw people from the Wood area and potentially up Nile Street that might come down to the river and come around here, but I'm not overly sure that will happen. But then I also heard some responses to questions in relation to the predominant users may well be the travelling to and from work people as opposed to the school cycling. So I'm not quite sure who the user group is that we're identifying here. But what's concerning me is that we ran into a bit of a problem here with this concept of an arterial cycle route running along the river. And I'm just looking at this map and the proposed cycle route, the pink here, which shows a link that runs all the way around the Maitai River, in fact, to the areas that were the subject of some public forum this morning. And I have a feeling that we haven't resolved that issue yet. And I just want to clarify that, because I thought that was still the subject of some further reporting to council. So it just seems if this, and the reason I'm raising this, Chair, I might seem a bit obtuse, but if the premise of this particular link is based on basically this wider network called the arterial cycle route, which includes using the river as the link, then I have to question the fundamentals of this particular project, because it sits in a wider context, and I think we need to be thinking about that. So my question is, have we ticked off arterial cycle route around the river, as shown in this proposed activity here, and is this, well, from my perspective, if this map's been included, this particular project is predicated on that system.
Mr. Palmer.
Through the chair, so to answer the question around the wider network and the status of that, the pink line, it's actually up on the screen now, here marked as proposed. You're absolutely correct that this hasn't come back to council to confirm that route. There's certainly a large volume of residences in this Nelson East area that we would like to connect to our principal cycle network. Now, it could be via a route through here, or it could be via a route using some of these other corridors. That hasn't yet been determined, but I think the important thing is that there is a strong desire to connect this residential area here with the principal cycle network. So it's, at the moment it's marked as proposed, and yes, the exact alignment has yet to be determined.
So, Mr. Chair, this is a comment, and I know you're on questions, but every time we put these things up, where we know that we've got communities who have got an intense interest in this, the sense is, and I'm sorry, this is a comment, and you're welcome to growl this point as chair, but I then understand why people get frustrated and feel like things are happening by stealth, and I think we've got to be very clear about what we're doing with this project.
Right. Councillor Ackland.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I had the question about the poppies as well, so thank you for your answer there. Just in terms of the decreased amenity value, what do we mean when we talk about amenity value? Because just to set my mind, and I'd like to hear your response, is, I mean, for me, this could potentially increase in amenity value through use and through access and different users of that park. So why would it be a decreased amenity value? I don't.
Through the chair, this area of the parkland is the north-facing area of the parkland where a lot of people will go to eat their lunch during the middle of the day. It's not in the shaded zone, so I think there's a reduction in amenity there, and that people will be seated one side of the path that will have increased street use than what is currently experienced.
And how does that work then with, is it a straw man argument then that it's going to be increased passive surveillance then? Because if people are already there eating their lunch, is there any benefit from having cyclists?
Through the chair, the transport activity I would see would be happening throughout the day, and certainly the surveys we show a spread at other shared path locations of use throughout the wider day.
And my final question is just trying to work that out. My expectation, correct me if I'm wrong, would be that there'd be times when the use is higher throughout the day. So if we're talking about school traffic, for instance, and work commuters, that's going to be in the morning and in the afternoon, so not around that lunchtime. So just on that amenity question again, there's still a bit of question mark over it for me as to whether that's real or perceived, because presumably there aren't going to be as many cyclists at lunchtime as there would in the morning and afternoon periods.
Through the chair, you're right that you would get a volume in that morning and afternoon peak time, but I think because this would ultimately connect in with the CBD and in with the Maitai path into the future, that you would also get daytime, middle of the day traffic as well from the recreation use and those people that aren't tied to a 9 to 5 time frame.
Councillor Skinner.
Thank you. Try and be concise here. In page 21, you talk about bricks on the pathway for that option, business option 1, matched to deter cyclists from taking an alternative route. What's that?
Through the chair, through the engagement that we had with the Return Service Association, they were very keen to ensure that if the decision was to put a path through Anzac Park, that there was one path that the people on bikes stayed on, so they didn't go through all the other paths within the park. And they saw a way of doing that, and we agreed by having a profile like a normal curb and channel, so that you would stay on the path. You had to physically hop over something or jump over something to go. So we envisaged that we would have a lip about a paver high, sort of 80 to 100 mils, made up of the brick pavers, so it all matches in nicely. And the reason we need that height is if we have a smaller height, you can trip on it. If you have a larger height that is very easy to see, you then step over it. So it was a very conscious decision that, we didn't want to do a 20 or 30 mil lip because that becomes a trip hazard. If you do something like the profile of a curb and channel, then it's very easy to visually see and walk over.
Understand that. And have we had any issues? Are there issues that we're trying to solve, either people cycling through Haven Road or cycling through the park? Have we had issues?
Through the chair, no, we haven't received any identified issues through the databases that we have access to.
And trying to gather an understanding. I'm reasonably familiar with the area, as we all are. We're looking after those who are less confident on their bicycles. I mean, you probably know my view of the Haven Road as average cyclists would be very comfortable cycling through there. That's my view on it. Are we trying to make a pathway for 2-3-year-olds? Is that school kids or those who are or elderly who maybe not so confident in walking, cycling?
Through this year, we are certainly trying to put a facility in here that the cyclists that are currently riding on the road wouldn't necessarily think is necessary, but there's a huge number of people in this interested but concerned category that currently won't ride into the CBD because they don't feel safe. So what we're trying to do is build facilities that for those people will feel safe to ride a bike into the CBD rather than drive.
And you think that's a fair mix of children and adults, or is it mainly, I perceive it being mainly adults, and you correct me there, and I'm trying to work out how school kids are being given any advantage with this pathway than the way they're getting through, and thirdly, are we not just creating
Is this,
more...
sorry, Councillor, is this the question?
This is the question, is are we just creating more issues of crossing Rutherford Street? If they're coming from Wakatu Car Park, Achilles Ave, Halifax Street, we're dragging them through there and getting them to sort of dogleg onto Anzac Park. Are we just not making more crossover areas that are different to already where we are crossover areas? It's a difficult bit to cross from Anzac Park across, or from Zumos and into Zumos area, across the road. Anyway, the traffic lights are a good option for crossing the road,
well,
but are we just creating
Mr.
more
Palmer
issues?
answer it, yeah.
Through the chair, perhaps if I just maybe refer to this slide here, might be easier. So through the project, we would envisage that we would install a pedestrian refuge somewhere in this zone on Rutherford Street. This location here has been identified through the concept work, so that there's a strong desire line through the park now for people that are walking, and for people that might be cycling down any of these routes, whether through the park or down Haven, to cross through into Achilles Ave and then filter through into the CBD. So we already know and hear about people having problems here, and we observe it every day when we're coming to work and going home, of people dashing across that piece of road because it's not that easy to cross, and it's a strong desire line with the park there. So absolutely would be encouraging more movements across that zone, and that's why we envisage that we would need to provide some infrastructure to get across there safely.
Thank you. Councillor Walker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a lot's been said about option 2, do nothing. Mr. Palmer, could you tell me what is the urgency to decide this now? I'm thinking of the effect of any delay relating to the Southern Link investigation. The answer is going to be known about that relatively soon. I personally think that Anzac Park is sacrosanct, and I take on board the Mayor's comment about the overall plan. What would be the effect of us delaying this?
Through the chair, the reason that this report is coming to you now is that we've recently opened up a soccer facility down St Vincent Street, with the last stage on St Vincent Street just recently being completed here. So at the moment we're directing cyclists to this point here, with a facility all the way from the Railway Reserve, which extends all the way out into Richmond, and we don't have a connection through the CBD, so there's a missing link here. If we don't do it, we could end up with increased crashes with people crossing Rutherford Street there, or cycling through Anzac Park on the narrow paths that exist there now and creating conflict.
One further question. I made a point of having a wander down there this morning. You're quite right about the freedom campers in there, in the forum. That concerns me. I just feel that we should be looking at more of an overall plan just here. I don't feel that any of them really, in my mind, satisfy a need to do anything immediately.
That was a question.
Yeah, so what is your...
Through the chair, I think in terms of whether we should be doing something now or not, I think I answered that in the previous question.
Okay. Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the through you, just on the topic of success and what success looks like, am I right in thinking that Nelson has the highest number of people walking and riding to school and work in the country? Highest percentage, yeah.
Through the chair, we certainly have the highest percentage of cycling. I think Wellington might pip us on the walking to work stat, but yeah, certainly in the cycling space we have the highest in the country.
Through the chair, can you tell us what the figure is?
Through the chair, it's 9% in the last census.
And can you tell us through the chair what the average figure is for the rest of the country?
I'm afraid no, I can't.
It's pretty low though.
That's good questions. Thank you very much.
No, I haven't quite finished, Mr. Chairman. Have we managed to get that 9% figure by doing these kinds of projects? Have they led, do you think, to us getting that success?
Through the chair, yes, I think Nelson's has a strong heritage of building cycle facilities for the last 20 odd years, and I'm sure that has been one of the key influences behind our cycle percentage, that coupled with typically good weather and people that enjoy being outside, living in Nelson, has contributed to that.
And finally, through the chair, the concern about us making a decision...
Is that for sure?
Yeah, for now. Through the chair. So the concern about us making a decision in about Anzac Park, when we haven't made a decision about the Mai Tai, it seems to me that that's a bit like saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have built the new shared pathway down St Vincent Street a few months ago because we hadn't actually decided what we were going to do with Anzac Park. Do you follow my logic? What do you think of that?
Through the chair, I believe that linking the railway reserve through to the CBD is very important, and it's a key part of the principal cycle network. It was part of the network map that was put forward in the out and about policy, and I fully accept we don't have that linkage across into Nelson East nailed in terms of alignment, but there's multiple options here to link this path to the CBD.
And there will be benefits regardless. Thank you.
Thank you. Final two for questions is Councillor Newland, followed by Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question relates to the consultation that's been done with this report. And you say that you've consulted the key stakeholders. Who are those?
Through the chair, so we have consulted with the RSA, in particular around route through Anzac Park, and then we did some fairly high-level network consultation with the stakeholder group through the out and about policy development. So that group had a number of members, and I may not off the top of my head be able to remember them all, but that included Bicycle Nelson Bays, Nelson Walkers Unite, I'm struggling for the rest of them. I think the police were included in there, the AA and others.
Following up, was that with these options as we're looking at in the report? Were they shown in this report?
Through the chair, no. It was about linking the St Vincent path through the CBD, that desire line.
Mr. Chair, just wondering, how long ago was that then?
That would have been in 2014.
I've got another question, Mr. Chair. Were the RSA advised that up to 500 cyclists a day might be going through this park?
Through the chair, I wasn't personally involved in that. If you just bear with me, I'll find out what kind of numbers we might have talked with them about. Hold on. No specifics around the numbers were not discussed with the RSA.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Palmer, just coming back to this issue of this wider network. So I'm, on the basis of the papers that are in front of us today, this is included as a supporting document in terms of the project. But what I'm hearing from you in answer to questions is that principally what you're trying to do here is connect St Vincent Street to the CBD at this stage. Is that the objective?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
So in terms of, so now I've got that clarified, so that certainly is actually quite a different proposition from where we started this morning, where it was the schools connection and other things that were part of this mix. But in fact, if I'm looking at this at the moment, and these pink lines, so if we up here, I can see them better on my piece of paper. Tell me about that next connection. So you've got one that runs down off Parapara Road. Where's that in the work program? Is that on its way?
Through the chair, a component of that path there has been built as part of the Rutherford Park development, and it's about as far as that corner there. So there's a link between there and where this project would end that is currently not in the work program.
All right, and in terms of that, I mean, you've got a sense of how complex different projects are. Are there like to be major complexities in getting that next link?
Through the chair, in terms of land purchase, no. It would be reasonably costly to put a cycle phase into those signals, but I envisage that would be something we would do under the minor works program, because it'd be a project less than $300,000 to link that up. So that would be something that would come through in the asset management plan as the next potential project to link this up to the Maitai path.
So wouldn't it be sensible to look at this, you know, if we've got a piece coming down already as part of Rutherford Park, we're talking about this, but wouldn't it be preferable to look at that whole as a whole, to make sure if we're going to do this and really get the gains out of this, wouldn't we want to look at this as one sequence?
Through the chair, in the ideal world, yes, it would be good to do it all in one go. I think it's fair to say that we've constructed the railway reserve from Richmond through to the CBD in pieces over the course of the last 20 odd years, and this is another phase. Absolutely be great to connect it all the way through to Maitai Path, and we'd get the best gains and the best benefits from doing that all in one hit.
So just in terms of the current objective, so if it's focused, given we've got some gaps in the network, so if I'm thinking about children trying to get to school and how they might do that from Nelson East and where they might go, there's still a piece missing for them to actually come through, whichever way we go. So if the objective, and we're saying, well, the gain at the moment is get that St Vincent Street into the CBD, and I can see all the reasons why that's a positive gain. What's the current impediment to that happening? You know, what is it that's deterring those extra 500 cyclists from, well, let's say it's not 500 if we're just doing CBD, let's say another 250. What's the current impediment?
In terms of getting through the chair, in terms of getting them through into the CBD?
Yes.
I believe it's crossing the busy part of Rutherford Street.
All right, so it's not actually the pathway, because I've certainly watched how busy that pathway currently is through Anzac Park, and it's a very easy, particularly with the changes that have happened at the end of St Vincent Street, it's very quick, easy run off and away you go, and you go straight through, and it's very obvious where you're going. So I didn't see that as a major impediment, the actual path itself. So in terms of that crossing Rutherford Street, can you just highlight what the proposal is in terms of the cost component to make that connection and timing? So if we were to think about what I'm trying to establish, Mr. Chair, is if we were saying what is the most important thing we need to do right now to actually work with our existing network but to get some gains, what is it and what's it going to cost and can it be done now? So I kind of know, can that a better crossing across Rutherford Street be achieved now, and what would that cost on its own?
Through the chair, so as I understand the question is, if we just built this component here, what would the cost be? I envisage that would be in the $60,000 to $100,000 mark to build a good quality crossing through there. I think it's important to note though that we have a relatively narrow path through here, and so that if we effectively, by doing nothing, incentivise and users to use this path, that we could end up with conflict through there because of the path width, the existing path width.
By having it there, we already have a blind spot for people coming out of our village, turning right with the speed park on that road. So we never put it anywhere. I'd be getting down here. Have a conflict.
Yep. Through the chair, we've looked at a number of different locations for that refuge in that block, effectively between Bridge Street here and Halifax. Locating it anywhere in this zone here affects the stacking length of those right turn bays, and we would then need to have some ongoing changes as a result of impacting on those stacking zones. So, sorry, through the chair, if we were to place the refuge, say, in here, then the right turn into Achilles Ave, you could only fit one vehicle, maybe two at the most, in this right turn bay. And then the next vehicle that wanted to turn right would be hanging out in the lane, impeding the through traffic, potentially causing a rear-end crash. So we've got to think about all of the stacking on all of these various right turn bays. If you bring it further down here and say, well, okay, let's ban the right turn in here and allow all the right turns in here, then the stacking from here might go back into the signals. We haven't done all of the surveys to understand exactly what they all might mean, but it's certainly not something that we can do on the fly in a meeting now.
I agree, and I wanted to highlight that to you because I had a look at it, the possible situation when I came out of our Achilles the other day. But it's not dissimilar going along to Hindewee Drive and turning right onto Muritai Street. You've got a very small area now on which to turn right, and that's far busier road than this one, right? But it seems to work because the drivers feel safe by having refuge behind them. They come, as they go to turn right, they feel protected.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the recommendations in the report.
I just got two questions for this gentleman, and then I'll be asking for that. Originally, the RSA said yes. Then they changed their mind in writing and said no. Have you got it in writing for the third time to say yes?
Through the chair, as I understood it, the RSA said no initially and then said yes, and I would need to find that particular piece of documentation to find the date for you. I don't have that right in front of me right now.
Oh, it just seems a bit of a ping pong going on between yes and no from the RSA, and nothing was consistent. The second question to you, Mr. Palmer, is if we directed the traffic, the cycling traffic, to turn right into Haven Road, do we really need to change anything in that road?
Through the chair, I think it comes down to what kind of facility you're trying to build, and are you trying to grow the cycling numbers. The combination of the manoeuvring vehicles and the 1,500 vehicles a day that drive through there will mean that people will be put off from riding into the CBD unless they're very confident. So we wouldn't achieve the project objective, in my view.
Okay, that's me. You wanted to move.
Am I on? I'm on.
Yep.
So I'd like to move all three recommendations, Mr. Chairman.
And seconded by Councillor Ackland. Right, let's have a speaking order. Do you wish to speak now?
I would.
Yep.
I'm really impressed with this recommendations, three recommendations. I think that what is being proposed preserves the park setting and it preserves the trees that we all love so much. It will increase activity in the park, which will make it less of a magnet for antisocial behaviour, which I think we all acknowledge is an issue in Exec Park. It'll be a safe and pleasant way for people to ride their bikes into town and to connect with the city. It'll encourage more people to ride bikes, younger people and older people as well. It'll definitely benefit the students of Nelson Intermediate, and I was up there today, there's a few other things it's a great idea in principle. It'll only cost us 3 to 6 car parks, which is fantastic. It continues the excellent work that we've been doing, which has made Nelson the #1 city for people cycling to school and work in the country, and I think we should be proud of that. I think we should keep up that good work. And we already have people riding bikes through the park, and we have people walking through the park. And we don't have problems there with accidents involving pedestrians and cyclists. The RSA supports it. I think that's fantastic. If we want to continue to grow cycling and if we want to reduce congestion, then we need to keep doing these kinds of projects. I don't think now's the time for it to stop. You turn the microphone on.
Bring it closer. Oh, I wasn't on. Would you like me to start again, Mr. Chairman?
No,
All right.
it's fine.
And I also think that I think it's a win-win.
Okay. Any further speakers? Councillor Atkins, did you want to speak now?
No, I don't need to speak.
Fine. Your worship.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move an amendment just in relation to this and to include an additional clause that I'm just in the process of scribbling out, but it will be along the lines of that, and notes that the primary purpose of this project, and if I'm successful in getting a second to EJ, I will come up with something with a piece of paper, of this project is to connect St Vincent Street cycleway to the CBD, and that further discussion, further decisions of council are required to determine an arterial cycle route to connect the Wood and Nelson East.
So you want to?
I want to
you
make
want to
it,
go and work on that,
I can work on that,
and we'll come back to you.
all right.
Okay.
So I just, well, it would be an amendment, so I'm happy to take some time if you want to adjourn. But if I'm given the tone of that, there may be no one who's prepared to second it, in which case I won't waste my time. Essentially, what I want to establish here is, and this is the part that I've raised in the questions, is that there is a document attached in here that is well ahead of where council has determined. And we already know that there is considerable concern about an arterial cycle route running along the Maitai River as the main connection. An arterial cycle route is a very different exercise to a shared pathway in my view, because you heard the numbers before, and you've got to think about what the implications of that in changing amenity around the river. And I just want to make it very clear that today's purpose, if it's to go ahead, is St Vincent Street to the CBD. It is not saying, essentially giving the first step that says, oh, and by the way, later on we're going to do this bit, because that's actually what concerns me with this report. We're well yet to have that discussion. So this is what I'm hearing from Mr. and I'm sorry to labour this, but what I'm hearing from Mr. Palmer, and he needs to correct me if I'm wrong, there is sufficient in this business case to allow this to do the CBD connection for him to recommend this to us. There is enough on that alone, because he knows he hasn't got the other connections to take us from East, Nelson East and the Wood, particularly for cycling to school. So I just need to, so I'm sorry to labour this, but I think this is really important. Because these are the things that upset the community when they see things like this and they go, but hang on a minute, you haven't discussed that yet, council, and yet you're showing proposed routes.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward though, Your Worship, because consultation on this particular piece, this link between St Vincent's and Rutherford Street, has been undertaken. And the case, and I hear exactly what you're saying, the case in front of us is at the moment, we either accept your thinking and everything is put on hold, or we deal with this particular bit.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. What I want to establish is, on the basis of the questions that I've asked and the answers that I've heard this morning, that Mr. Palmer can present a case to us here, seeking council funds on the basis that this project stands sufficiently to do the connection from St Vincent Street to the CBD only. And we acknowledge as a committee that there has been no consultation yet, or it's yet to come, on that wider linkage across the rest of the city. So that we're trying to establish the scope of this decision, that it doesn't send a signal about the rest of what might happen, because that's yet to be discussed.
I'm okay with that.
Just hold. Well, just hold a second. Can I just get an explanation from you, Mr. Palmer, with regard to the Mayor's comments?
Through the Chair, yes, Madam Mayor, you raise a really good point. I wonder whether in section 2.1 of the report, where we already say that the background when we developed the out and about policy was that a number of projects would come back to council, and listed within that list of projects on top of page 11, we do mention there that the Maitai Path alignment will need to come back to council for consideration. So for me, that covers your concern, because you're absolutely right, we can't progress that Nelson East network without that coming back to council.
Mr. Chair, I'm content with the Mayor's point, which is to basically have a signal as to the scope of this decision that we're making today, and I think it's an appropriate thing to be able to have included in the resolution that we make, so it signals exactly where this decision sits. And so I'm happy to second and amend it to the motion that's been put if the mover agrees, so that it includes words yet to be provided by the Mayor but perhaps we could do that over the break and then come back after a cup of tea.
The mover agrees. Just in case you're wondering.
Let's have an adjournment for 5. You okay with 5?
to speak
Oh,
here
no,
at
you
the
haven't.
moment.
That's right.
Thank
We've
you.
got your clarification.
So I was asking clarification as to the process for, so it can be moved, there can be moved as an amendment. So would it be as an amendment?
No.
Because it says there would be a procedural motion that goes to procedural motion. Well, in that case, I'll move the procedural motion. I have to say I'm doing it through gritted teeth.
Well, I could
to
do
move
with-
it to
with no
council. Well,
gritted
I've got this talking stick, so I think I'll move it up to council.
Do we have a seconder?
Thank
And
you.
you don't wish to speak? Okay, fine. Mr. Laurie. It's been moved by Her Worship, seconded by Councillor Laurie.
Speaking to the motion, there's no speaking to procedurals. Okay, it's done. So we put that. There's no speaking.
That means that the subject itself will now be on the agenda for the next council meeting.
So the only thing that we, the clarification is that what we're doing right with this vote is everything stops and we move the whole thing up.
Correct. And the exercise starts again. Okay. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. Doesn't say that, but it will. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. You said no. Why? You just wanted to say something. You just wanted to say something. Next item on the agenda is item number 9, outdoor dining.
So through the Chair, Jules Reid will present the report.
Page 42 to 47.
34 to 41. 34 to 41 through the Chair.
34 to 41? Well, how come my numbers? Oh, yeah. The floor is yours.
Morning to the Chair. Yep, so I just wanted to present the report for the Alton Street licence to occupy. We are recommending that Council approve the extension of the fish stock licence for another 5 years, but just subject to certain criteria. That the lessee purchases tables, chairs and umbrellas of a uniform design, and that the painting of the exterior of the structure is done to the satisfaction of council officers. So if anybody has any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, I'll go first. Did we really suggest it be painted black?
We talked about painting a uniform colour. It wasn't told, it wasn't set in stone that it was that had to be any particular colour. We did talk about black, but nothing was, it wasn't said that it had to be that colour. We've also talked about a mural as well, and I've also suggested getting in touch with the art students at NMIT to see if they could come up with something, because obviously it is used quite a lot by them as well.
Okay. Councillor McGurk?
Yeah. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, Ms. Reid, is it possible to have a bit more clarity around the agreement that council reaches with the proprietor of the Alton Street? Because listening to public forum this morning and on a previous occasion, it seems to be a classic case of she said and this is what she said and this is what I heard, and they're not necessarily the same thing. So I'm just wondering, can we have is there some real clarity around what has been agreed between the council and the proprietor of the fish shop?
So through the Chair, yep, when we visited, we talked about the design, and we said that we weren't happy with the exterior of the of how it looks at the moment, and she did agree with that as well, as she did this morning. So we did talk about either painting it a uniform colour so it just looks smarter, and if we paint it uniform colour, we said that we would want chairs and tables and umbrellas which matched, so it just looks smarter, and more aesthetically pleasing and more in line with what we have in the rest of the CBD. I know it's a completely different concept, which is why I think the option of having a mural would be good as well.
What's the uniform colour?
Or one colour, or one colour.
Is that brown or beige? Or Yeah, that's the point is that I'm trying to make is that you might have an understanding, the officers might have an understanding, and the proprietor may have a different understanding.
Right, through the chair, I mean, we have been in email contact, so, we're saying either she paints it one colour or she paints a mural, but we would like council officers to approve anything before she does it, which is why we've asked her not to do anything at the moment.
Okay, she said that umbrellas blow away.
Through the chair, well, we believe because she's got the glass up there at the moment, and if she has tables which are substantial and have got holes in the middle, we did talk about that, and she did discuss the types of tables that she was looking at, then they would hold those umbrellas in place.
Councillor Neelan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm not sure if you were here at the public forum. Were you at the public forum? So you would have heard me talk about the glass. I'm a little bit concerned about the glass. Has it been checked by our building team as safe?
Through the chair, no, it hasn't been checked as far as I'm aware, but I will double check on that for you.
I just feel that it should be checked.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that when you, through the chair, the painting of it, can we get a traffic view on that? A traffic safety view before it is signed out?
Through the chair, that's why we'd like to, to have any ideas that she's got, and we'd like to get that agreed with council first before we go ahead. Thanks. Can I just mention about the bins as well? I just wanted to let you know that we did look at installing new bins there, and there's a cost, quite a significant cost to that, to get one of the silver stainless steel bins with a lid. For installation and purchasing, it would be about $2,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions from me. Do we require other operators who have public space that they use to purchase tables and chairs and umbrellas of a uniform design?
Through the chair, no, we don't. Generally, the other outdoor dining areas that we've got are in the CBD, and it's a bit of a they just use the same chairs and tables that they generally have outside. So they are similar to what they've got inside, basically. But the space is very different.
So, through the chair, why are we putting that requirement on this operator?
Through the chair, so we were wanting it to look look smarter, basically, because we felt that the look at the moment wasn't the look we wanted for Nelson.
Okay, my next question through the chair is, do we let anyone else paint or decorate the public space that they use in their company colours?
Through the chair, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Ackham?
I just wanted to ask, thanks Mr Chair, I just wanted to ask through you, I think it intrigued me the questions that Councillor Noonan was asking about glass and structures and so on. Essentially they're health and safety concerns. Have we turned our mind to whose obligation under the Health and Safety at Work Act, health and safety at this site would be?
Through the chair, I think because the owner would have the licence to occupy, then it would fall with her, but I can double check that for you.
Well, it's okay, but perhaps, but so just a follow-up question, is council undertaking any of the construction, or is council just a landlord essentially requiring certain parts within a lease?
Through the chair, we're just the landlord, we don't do any of the construction.
So it seems to me, and agree with me if I'm wrong, that things like glass, things like structures, things like that they're all health and safety responsibilities of the occupier who's taking control of it.
Yep, through the chair, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Has anyone considered the idea of, through the chair, the idea of this discussion about a mural? Is there an opportunity here for us to use our art selection process that we do in other parts of the city to get something that might be quite nice, quite special? And I'm imagining Arts Council Nelson being involved, that kind of thing. Is there an opportunity there?
Through the chair, yep, that's certainly something that we could look into. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Barker?
Yeah, thank you. I just wondering why there isn't a photograph of the proposed site for the Urban Oyster and Eatery Bar.
Sorry, through the chair. There's a report coming up next for the outdoor dining. So this report was just specifically based on the Alton Street outdoor dining area.
So you attached the others just because?
So it's got, the attachments are what the original plans, and then the two pictures of the actual fish stop as it is now.
Okay, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, through the chair. The tenant had the impression that it wasn't, from my understanding when speaking to her here at the meeting, that she was under the impression it wasn't a trial, it was a sort of a right of, pretty much a given right of renewal. My understanding when we council meeting that in public, that it was a trial and we proposed it, it was a trial and nothing less and nothing more. But why or how do you think she's under the impression that she's being shortchanged if she doesn't continue beyond the trial?
Through the chair, it was just a trial, and there have been no promises that it would go on beyond that. I think that obviously she's put in, she's paid a lot of money to build what she's built there. So therefore, that's why she wants it to continue. But there haven't been, we've never said that it was any more than a trial for that placemaking trial. Now that the moratorium's been lifted on outdoor dining, that's why we're looking at extending it as an outdoor dining licence.
Thank you.
Sorry, through clarification, the lifting of the moratorium applies to the CBD. This is separate. This is outside of the CBD, and this is a separate issue. Just to clarify that last point. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, so good point. So we can't be looking at this as a whole new lease arrangement.
So through the chair, what will happen under this scenario here is that officers will enter into a new lease with the fish stop to occupy that space for a period of 5 years, as we've indicated here, and that'll be a new lease, along with, from whenever, provided, subject to approval of this committee, then the lease will be prepared between council and the fish stop for a period of 5 years, and that'll be actioned as soon as we can following this report.
Ladies first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just with the conversation that's just been happening, something came to mind regarding how this situation occurred, and I think it was actually under a placemaking. And my question is, are there any others like this that are about to come up that we may have to review for a lease? Any outstanding ones?
Through the chair, no, there are not. This was the only establishment that had the uptake for a placemaking trial.
And finally, Councillor Laurie.
I'm actually wondering whether we might be able to have an adjournment, and the reason why is because I want to put up an amendment, and I want it to say something like, and that the exterior of the structure be painted in a mural selected with the support of Art Council Nelson. But I'm not sure if I've got the words right, and I'd like to get some advice on that.
So, I need to make it, and I'm not pointing fingers, that I get very uncomfortable when we do amendments on the run. And I think you'll all agree they end up becoming quite messy. So I'm just giving you advance warning on this committee that if you're going to make an amendment, can you please do it prior to the discussion being held? We can make that a condition.
So through the chair, I think the process that we have for the artworks around council, I wouldn't have envisaged that, and this is my own personal view, that a mural on a structure of this sort would follow that procedure. I think what we are agreeing to is that a mural would be appropriate, and that we would work with the shop owner to get that mural up. I'm just not too sure that this fits the criteria for undertaking this work underneath that arts. I think that is a separate process,
Okay.
and that's my personal view. I think this would just be something that we would make sure that we talk with the owner, and there are a number of murals around that we do that.
So can I ask through the chair, when someone puts a mural on a bit of public property, how do we decide whether or not that's appropriate, that particular design?
Through the chair, if it's on private property,
No, public property.
on public property, I'm trying to think of a specific example.
You know?
Here comes Mr. Ward with the
One of the big
answer.
guns is coming up.
So through the chair, we have an art selection panel, which is made up of community representatives and staff, and they would assess the merits of proposals that were going on public buildings.
Thank you. And I think also Jill made mention, didn't she, that she would like to look at something of that nature.
Okay, so I'm still keen to explore the idea of an amendment. The issue then, this is why I was seeking the adjournment, the issue then comes, how would such a artwork be paid for?
Probably she would pay for it.
So, and apologies, I didn't quite capture through the chair the previous conversation.
Through the chair. Oh, so through the chair. I'm interested in. I see an opportunity here for a mural in that part of town that I think would be better than just painting that structure a uniform colour. But given that it is public land, I would like to have some kind of art expert oversight into what goes on those walls. So I'm trying to find a way that we could make an amendment to recommend a mural, and it would be a mural that had some sort of input from people who know about art. Can you help me through this?
So through the chair, if the proposal was for a third party to fund that mural, then certainly council could provide support through its art selection panel in giving comments and feedback in terms of the artistic merits of any proposals, and also how one might deliver the project. So we've got, we understand how the project management works for arts projects. If Councillor Lawrie is suggesting that the Art Fund should contribute towards that, we have a separate process where the Chair of Community Services and the Mayor identify sites where we request proposals from for artworks within the CBD, and the priority previously has been on the Mai Tai Walkway site as in terms of developing an arts trail there. And so we would need approval for the site, and then we would also use the Arts Council process for calling for expressions of interest from artists.
Okay, I've got it. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put up an amendment, if that's okay. And the amendment I'd like to put up says, and that the exterior of the structure be painted in a mural approved by the Arts Selection Panel and paid for by the operator.
Right, I've heard it. We get no more questions. Right, would someone like to move the recommendation? We have to move and second that first. Moved by Councillor Ackland, seconded by Councillor Skinner. Yes. Yep. Okay. And your amendment will actually amend the last two lines of the recommendation?
Just the last line.
Okay, it's a recommendation to council. Oh, yeah. Good thinking. All those in favour of receiving the report, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Right. Now we look at the recommendation to council. And you're moving and you're amending that last line.
Yes. And the amendment says, and that the exterior of the structure be painted in a mural approved by the art selection panel and paid for by the operator.
Yeah, just,
Are those the right words? Operator?
yes. Yes, we are. Councillor Skinner.
Yeah, I can't vote for that. I understand what's trying to achieve here. The original recommendation, I believe, covers that, was the painting and or a mural of the council officers' approval, and I see what we're trying to do is try and tidy it up. My concern of this whole recommendation and giving the leasee an extra 5 years comes back to, I think it was a year or 2 years ago when the whole idea of the trial came up. The concern was it would become a bit of a hosh-posh, and also a kind of self-entitlement came through strongly on this one, as it was a trial, and it would have been understood, and I understood it, as it was a trial, not a right of renewal by default. And I was concerned that the first structure that was built was a real hosh-posh. The current one is quite tidy and quite nice in comparison, but we sort of opened the floodgates there for businesses to sort of extend the original, which was rightfully as a staff to turn down the original lean-to or extension. It's concern is that it becomes a bit of a shanty town right around the CBD. I realise it's just outside of CBD. On the other side of the coin, I want to support this business because it seems to work quite well as an eating place and a shared spot, and I believe it's good for the business and it's good for the students there. My concern is that we approve this for an extra 5 years. We just, there's that lack of that self-entitlement that we get into trouble here. The compromise of the original recommendation I'm semi-supportive of, so I do not support the amendment. I understand what's happening there, but the current recommendation, she can, well, at least he can have a mural or have a straight, simplistic colouring of choice. There seemed to be a bit of misunderstanding there, as Lisa was trying to explain that she wasn't given approval for anything other than black, which is not correct, or given approval for a mural, which you can. So I'm not supporting the amendment because it is micromanaging there, and we're suddenly moving it away from a business situation and a public area situation to a Arts Council blank canvas situation for a sculpture or artwork. It's not, it's a business lease arrangement, and it's also a bit of public land we've given away to the business for a leasee in whichever way it needs to work well for the business and the people who use the area, not just for business but for eating, which it does. So no.
Right. Now, just to make it clear for me, because I got rather confused in amongst all that, you are not in favour of the suggested amendment,
correct,
but you're in favour of the recommendation, or you're not?
Sorry, I'm not understanding this is an amendment.
No, so through the chair, Councillor Laurie moved that this, with the additional words, is the motion on the table, and that was seconded by Councillor Ackland. So, so if this is lost, it doesn't go back to what's on the table.
I'd like to make an amendment, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no.
I'd like to make an amendment, Mr. Chair.
Just a minute. I've just got to get this one tidied up.
Yeah. So for my angle of it, operation here and the way I vote, it's important I know whether it's an amendment or a motion, and understand it's quite a different outcome with the motion.
No.
Quite a different. What? So again, I don't need to know if this is an amendment or a motion, which has been signalled now. It's a motion that was originally put up as an amendment, I believe. And this is where we seem debating on. So I just need to make sure we're all, and I think for Councillor Laurie's case and Madam Mayor's case.
So through the chair, our records reflect that this was put up as the motion with that added clause. So
That
this
addition.
is this addition. So that what is up there is
The
motion.
recommendation.
It's not an amendment.
I would
it's
like
the
to make an amendment then.
recommendation.
Just hold on.
Yes.
Is the seconder aware of? Was the seconder aware of that? Because I.
Yes. He agreed to it.
Okay. As a motion, I thought they agreed it to as an amendment. Laurie.
No.
Okay. Okay. So as you're well aware, if this is lost, it's completely lost. So regardless of what my view is beyond this.
So
Move
no,
an
we're all
amendment.
getting confused now. What do you want?
I would like to make an amendment for it to read the way that it was as a recommendation in the first place.
And I'll second that.
Otherwise, this lady's going to miss out completely.
Yeah, I'm going to have to without debate. Hmm? Now you know why I hate these things. Right.
Through the chair, we're just having problems with the Word document here. I don't know why it's not behaving itself. Just give us a moment if you can. Right, there you go. So that's the amendment now.
The amendment is now the original words in the recommendation.
Right, it's been amended that we go to the original recommendation to council. It's been moved and by Councillor Noonan, seconded by Her Worship the Mayor. I'm going to put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those the contrary?
No.
The ayes have it.
Sure?
Sorry? Yeah, you lose it, you lose it.
Okay.
Sorry, give me a moment here. It's now come back to an amending what was the motion back to the original.
And that's an amendment.
Recommendation. So this is an amendment.
Correct.
Now, I'm 3 seconds behind the ball there.
Well, you're more like a minute.
Well, I think you guys heaps of change of different words. Amendments comes across the table by the time it gets to.
It's get carried unless anybody asks for show of hands. No, they don't. Yep. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you explain to us exactly where we're at?
Yes, I know. What has happened is, and I'll go through what you did. You moved and you included that amendment in moving that recommendation, right? And that was seconded by Councillor Ackland. That was fine. Okay, so we made the amendment up there. It became the recommendation to council. Okay. It was then, someone got me horribly confused, but it was then an amendment came from Councillor Noonan, which was seconded by the Mayor, that we return to the original that was on our papers prior to you adding that amendment. Okay? I then put it and it was carried.
So now we have to move. Point of order, that's correct.
No, it's not. No. Yeah. So now, I'm now going to put the substantive recommendation to council.
So, sorry, just because I'm still a little bit confused here. So we don't get the opportunity to vote or debate the amendment that I originally put up?
No, it's done.
How strange.
So, has it been moved and seconded? It has, by Councillor Noonan and... Oh, now, right. Okay, I'll now put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Amendment?
No.
Why not?
It's going to council.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. It's, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And to the contrary? The ayes have it. Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, all respect, that seemed a bit like a
Don't say anything.
a shell hiding game, and it was unintended. But when you sort of slid the changes off with that colour issue, and then slid it back on, you turned your head for a moment, and there's a new amendment which was come across. The amendment becomes a motion, and back to an amendment. So it was a clever bit of card shuffling.
Okay, we're now going to page 42, outdoor dining. Sorry to hold you up. We had a bit of colour problem. Nikki, floor's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In June 2016, the moratorium on outdoor dining was lifted, and one of the recommendations that the approval be for new applications for outdoor dining be given to the Chief Executive, and that these be reported back to the Works and Infrastructure committee. So this report really is just FYI in terms of in 4.3 that there are four car park dining that have been approved by the Chief Executive. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Barker?
I can't determine, are these all new licences?
Through the chair, yes.
So how many car parks are we losing? I don't like losing so many car parks.
Through the chair in 4.3, it covers how many car, so it's 4 car parks.
Each one is one single car park.
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. 4 car parks lost.
Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, if I may. The Vic Brew Bar already has 3, I think, is that right? And they're adding another 1.
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. And does that make it better, through the chair, does that make it actually easier? Because I know there's sort of an access issue trying to get into that area because there are fountains and bollards everywhere. Does that actually make it easier now?
Through the chair, I would like to introduce you to Margot Wilson,
Margot.
our property officer, who's been working intimately on this project. So I'll leave it to her to answer.
Yes, through the chair, I understand that that one car park has been of some debate, and generally it's considered to be a positive thing that the Vic is taking this, and this space is directly in front of their business.
Yes, thank you. The other question through the chair is regarding page 47, the Pizzeria Bella, which it's not particularly that one, but in your picture here, it shows that there's a motorcycle car parking there, and with the new seal that's just been redone, the motorcycle park was turned into a normal car park, and I don't like to assume, but I'm assuming that was an error and that will be replaced because I have had some complaints about that.
Through the chair, all of the businesses on that block were consulted. We did not do a public consultation, but all of the businesses were consulted, and it was felt necessary to reconfigure the parking there to make sure that Pizzeria Bella space was directly only in front of its half of the building, because that building is in 2 halves, and the owner of the building as well as the tenant on the other half wanted to make sure that if that other half ever wanted some outdoor dining or an outdoor space, that it wouldn't have been taken partially by Pizzeria Bella's build.
So the question really is, through the chair, is whether that motorcycle park is going to be reinstated.
Through the chair, no. At this moment, that's not the intention. There is another motorcycle park at the end of that block, just 5 spaces down. There were 2 on that block, now there's just 1.
So to the west?
We did remove 1.
To the west?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates to 4.4. It says the smoke-free message has also been strongly encouraged with these 4 and will be with all future applications. How has the smoke-free message been encouraged?
Through the chair, through conversations with cafe owners.
Through the chair, will those conversations actually result in any change in behaviour, or is it just a conversation that's been had? I mean, what do you think that will achieve?
Through the chair, what will the conversations achieve? We've had great communication and relationships with these cafes. They've been very cooperative on every aspect of this project so far, and there is in general a reduction of smoking throughout Nelson, throughout the CBD. So I don't think, if they don't put out, for example, ashtrays and so forth, I think there shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Okay, great. Sorry, through the chair, are they actually entertaining the idea of putting signs up like Maury Street Cafe has done? Do you know if anyone's thinking about doing that?
Some are thinking of doing that, yes.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Okay. No more question? Councillor Skinner.
I'm at I feel a bit of a loss there with the motorcycle spot taken. I realise there's another one further down, but those two parks are fairly busy with motorcycles at times. Can we not relocate that motorcycle spot?
Chair, I can't speak to that. That's the roading committee, and I will certainly ask them if there are any other opportunities to add to motorcycle spaces throughout town.
And a reason why was the motorcycle spot taken? Was that because we felt the need to replace the lost car park with a car park?
Through the chair, it was most specifically reconfigured because the building that Pizzeria Bella is in is actually 2 tenancies on the frontage, and the original car park was sort of in the very middle of that building, and the other tenant and the owner of the building felt that that would cause problems in the future if both tenancies at some point wanted outdoor dining.
Okay. Right. I'll move now the recommendation that the committee receives the report, outdoor dining, etc. So I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Eklund. Any further comments? None? That's great. I'll now move it. All those in favour, please say aye. And to the contrary, the ayes have it.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, that we do follow up with a look at that motorcycle parking, because that is a great loss. It is a very busy motorcycle car park there. That is formally sorted out with you later.
Right, what have we got next, mate? What page are we on? Capital expenditure?
Page 48.
Page 48, capital expenditure program. Who's going to talk to this?
Through the chair, Mr. Shane Davies will talk to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take my report as read. I'll just add that this covers the period from July through to the beginning of October, so July, August and September. This is the time where we prepare projects for construction and also do planning for new projects as we work on them through the year. So I'll take any questions that councillors might have.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chair, in relation to the recommendations here, perhaps I could just ask if you would mind taking the Little Go Stream project, which relates to the Allen Street intake separately. As I live in Allen Street, I just think I probably shouldn't vote on that one.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question, if I may? I'm looking at transfers, 600,000 from the current 17 Rocks Road project. What would happen if the Southern Link investigation business case didn't proceed any further? Would we bring that money forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we would assess that if that happened, but if we needed the money back, then we would come to Works and Infrastructure Committee and request that funding.
Okay. Well, Matt's not here, so we'll move. Someone like to move the recommendation?
I will move, subject to that second to last item being moved separately at the end.
Yep.
I'll move the balance.
Right, seconded. Councillor Walker.
Yes, I'll receive the report and all the matters except the Allen Street.
And seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favour, please say aye. And to the contrary? The ayes have it. Now I'll move the transfer of $400,000 from the current 2016-17 financial year to the project 2865, etc.
Happy to move.
You second that, Councillor Noonan? Any debate? I moved it. Yep. Any conversation? No debate? I'll put it to you. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, the ayes have it. Thank you. I declare the meeting closed at 12:22, and thank you for your attendance, debate and input.
Mr. Beforehand, I just want to take a moment to, and I sent an email last night to Mr. Lavertis and Mr. Roger Ball, and I just want to